Chapter 1478. Under the traction state. Han Dong's consciousness was wrapped in a mass of gray fluid and drifted toward an unknown territory. During this period, his consciousness was in a semi-unconscious state, unable to make any movements, and even his perception of the flow of time was not very accurate. When his consciousness gradually became clear, Han Dong found that he was floating along the gray fluid into the depths of the universe. A strange neutron star was suspended here alone. Upon closer inspection, the entire neutron star had been transformed into a gravity prison, abandoned. Han Dong's consciousness followed the fluid's traction all the way to the interior of the neutron star, bypassing layer after layer of prison structures. The deeper he went, the stronger the gravity pressure on the prison became. Even in the deepest part, he vaguely glimpsed a structure similar to a miniature black hole. The guy who was once imprisoned in the deepest part and had to be bound by a black hole, who knew how powerful it was. Han Dong was temporarily unaffected by the gray fluid and finally came to the dilapidated monitoring room. The monitoring equipment had long been abandoned, and this was equivalent to a small, closed black room. The gray walker, who was wearing a small vest and whose appearance could not be seen clearly, was already sitting here. He gently withdrew his hand and sucked away the gray fluid that wrapped Han Dong. "Senior, is this the prison used by the hybrid demons to imprison criminals? Is this your previous life when you created the incarceration dimension?" "That's right. This neutron star prison was once directly under my management, dedicated to imprisoning existences that are unfavorable to the development of the world. The unfavorable here is different from the judgment standards of you humans. We don't judge whether an individual should be imprisoned through behavior. Perhaps a hybrid demon is very bad in your eyes, causing the deaths of thousands of individuals by starting a war. But from the perspective of the universe, the war he started is promoting the development of the elites of the world and may even get the attention of some of the old kings or even high-level organizations like the Secret Court. We judge whether an individual should be imprisoned from its essence. For example, the ninth origin, Kit, is an individual that is born to cause destruction to the world. Their existence is like a toxin, parasite, and tumor to the world. This kind of existence needs to be imprisoned and their activities restricted. Rampager, Han Dong immediately thought of this term. The Black Tower's imprisonment system was similar. Once it was detected that an individual was born in a world that was harmful to the development of the world, it would be stamped with a Rampager mark. The Gray Walker continued. To be able to be locked up in this neutron star prison, the prisoners themselves are all powerful geniuses with extraordinary potential. Even if the people at the bottom aren't given the throne, they're still at the king level. Of course, there are also some humans imprisoned here, and they are one of the prisoners that I am most interested in. Later, due to the occurrence of the world cataclysm, our world was greatly impacted. The fall of the old king and his heavy injuries, as well as the irreparable tear in the world, caused many superior existences to be unable to sit still. During the post-war meeting, they raised the topic of building a world sanctuary. Including me, many old kings have taken on the task of building a prototype, and in the end, we will choose the best prototype to carry out a comprehensive construction, which will be used to transfer worlds in times of crisis. My thoughts are different from everyone else's. In my opinion, if the origin world were to encounter a world-ending calamity, even if the core forces and direct clans fled to the sanctuary, the other side would definitely do everything in their power to chase after them. It would be better to create a special space that could reverse the situation and draw in the enemy's main forces at the beginning of the war. Therefore, using the prison as a foundation, I tried to design a prison plane that would incorporate the characteristics of the incarcerated. Unfortunately, the prototype I submitted was deemed to be too unstable. As the prison plane develops, it may cause harm to the origin world or even devour the origin world. Therefore, the prototype I designed was rejected just like that. I have to admit that the design of Dreamlands is perfect. It can be used as an ideal sanctuary, and it can also be used as a very stable auxiliary world. It can also ensure that the connection with the origin world is completely cut off when danger strikes. Later on, I was ordered to destroy the prototype of the prison plane. Of course, you know the outcome. The prototype has already melted into your brain. I won't let the prison that I spent so much effort on be torn down just like that. In my opinion, the prison world that the prototype will eventually evolve into is definitely more valuable than Dreamland's. They only needed to find a suitable warden to control the instability that they were worried about. And you're the perfect candidate. Hearing this, Han Dong asked a question with some concern. Could it be that the former incarcerated are also in my head? Don't worry, they have been transferred to other areas, or shelters, or prisons, or some experimental bases. They are only the builders and testers of the prototype of the prison. After all, I want to ensure that the prison's imprisonment ability reaches a high enough level. Once they enter, they can forget about leaving. So that's how it is. Han Dong had long experienced how strong the imprisonment ability of his head was. As long as the goal of the containment standard was met, once imprisoned, all connections with the previous world would be directly cut off, and they would completely submit to Han Dong. Han Dong continued to ask, "Senior, what you mean is that with the development of the faceless head, it will eventually give birth to a world? But this head has neither a title deed nor a node in the destiny space. How can it form a world? Title deed, didn't I help you modify it?" When this was said, Han Dong suddenly widened his eyes. "Senior, what you mean is, my head's upgrade this time will be integrated with the moving title deed? Yes, this is the London reward that I really want to give you." With that said, a title deed that exuded a mythical aura, with Han Dong's name printed on the lower right corner, was already floating in the air. Once successful, your manor will be perfectly integrated with the prison, opening up the prototype of the prison world. The creatures living in the manor will not be affected, but their title for you will change from Lord to Warden. The prisoners that are kept in your head from the Destiny space will gain more freedom and room for growth. Come on. Hearing this, Han Dong was already a little impatient. Don't worry, sit on this chair first. This process involves the expansion of the space inside the brain. The process will be very painful, and it will even cause you to fall into a period of loss of control. The purpose of drawing your consciousness to this prison ruins is to have a certain restraining effect on your consciousness. Sally will also help to suppress your body in the brain integration room of the secret court. Under the guidance of the Grey Walker, Han Dong sat on the full harness chair in the monitoring room. His brain was tightly restrained by more than 10 steel rings and hundreds of spikes. Han Dong gently tapped the armrest of the chair with his fingers, indicating that he was ready. Schwat, a gray tentacle carrying the moving title deed, directly squeezed into the back of Han Dong's head. Suddenly, Han Dong's eyes were bloodshot and even felt like they were about to pop out. The teeth restraint was also creaking. If it wasn't for the restraint of the mouth, he would have bitten off his tongue in an instant, and even all his teeth would have been crushed. The disguise was removed. Han Dong, who revealed his original body, struggled wildly on the chair. Clang, clang, clang. The violent sound of steel colliding and screams spread among the prison ruins. Chapter 1479. Secret Court, Brain Integration Room. Millions of hybrid demon brains with a multifaceted three-dimensional structure were inserted into the back of Han Dong's head through the cranial nerves, and after the integration of multiple bundles, they were constantly delivering primordial brain matter. At the same time, they would also act as external parallel CPUs to share the huge load brought by brain upgrade. Pa! 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 In the beginning, not even a minute had passed. An external brain directly exploded due to overload, and the few brains around it also began to swell and bubble, showing signs of instability. One had to know. These brains were all hybrid demon brains collected from various channels of the secret court, quality and above, or brains voluntarily contributed by the Yith tribe. Every day, they received and processed a huge amount of campus information, and such a situation had never occurred before. Now, these brains were actually becoming unstable. Han Dong's body, which was in the center of the brain cluster, also began to show signs of instability. Disguise removed, the terrifying blood dog's right arm and the undying's left arm were revealed, and they began to indiscriminately destroy the surroundings. Seeing this, Sally immediately stretched out her strong and powerful legs. From left and right, she clamped Han Dong's body tightly. Hiss! Not long after she clamped down, white smoke rose from Sally's legs. Whether it was the holy blood flowing out of the right arm, or the death attribute that she had just learned from the vice principal, they were all causing direct damage to Sally. Black silk whole black goat tentacles drilled out from between her legs, secreting a mucus that originated from the Black Forest. While healing her injuries, it also strengthened the restrictions on Han Dong's body. Sally gritted her teeth. She knew very well that this process was very important to Han Dong, and no mistakes could be made. At this moment, an indescribable sense of danger struck Sally's heart. She noticed the spot between Han Dong's eyebrows. A vertical slit was wriggling slightly, and the demon eye seemed to want to open. I can't let this eye open. Sally's curse technique originated from the Black Forest, and a character visible to the naked eye fell on Han Dong's face along with her voice. With the spot between his eyebrows, a pitch-black goat emblem formed, firmly suppressing the demon eye. At this moment, a power that Sally had never seen before suddenly shot out from the demonic eye, tearing the goat emblem apart in the form of a whirlpool. A visible black vortex formed in front of Sally's eyes. The spatial compression in the form of a vortex acted on Sally's body, forcibly distorting her organs, and even her soul was affected. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of amethyst blood that contained a large amount of eggs. The legs that were clamping down on Han Dong slowly loosened. She was good at killing enemies, but she wasn't good at restraining Han Dong without hurting him. She couldn't use abilities like Trample and Death Curse. The situation was getting worse and worse, but Sally couldn't think of a solution. What kind of eye technique is this? If this goes on, everything in my body will be crushed by this eyeball. Why can't I even do this well? Why is it always in protecting me? Just as he was about to reach his limit, the pain suddenly disappeared. Black Goat Sally stared at the young man in front of her, and memories of the past flashed through her mind. My name is Warren Nicholas. I'm glad to work with you. As long as you follow my plan, we should be able to take down the branch church. Miss Sally, I'm confident that I can help you win the bet with Green. Sally, if you don't mind, you can stay in my manor before the London game starts. Images of the two flashed through her mind like a merry-go-round. Ba-thump! A strange heartbeat came from Sally's heart, and it could even be heard by the Yith in the brain integration room. At the same time, the same heartbeat came from the center of the main tree of the Black Forest millions of light years away. The mother of the Black Goat, who was soaking in the bathtub, showed a motherly smile. Sally, have you finally found the mythical opportunity? Did you find it from that kid? Back in the brain integration room, as the loud heartbeat spread in the area, living trees similar to the Black Forest grew in the brain integration room. It was a mythical realm where reality interfered. A mythical painting in Sally's body had been completed. It depicted the scene of a flock of sheep running, playing, eating, and giving birth in the forest. If one zoomed out and looked carefully at the silhouette formed by the flock of sheep in the forest, it would form the side profile of a man and a woman. As the forest wriggled and the flock moved, the man and woman made very intimate contact and kissed. Mythical painting, forest of love, while the myth was being built. Hundreds of slippery black forest tentacles grew out from Sally's back and sealed her and Han Dong in a sealed space. Without any hesitation, she took the initiative to kiss him. She injected the purest purple essence into Han Dong's body in the most direct way. It was similar to the effect of a powerful tranquilizer, slowly suppressing Han Dong's body. The demon eye closed again and was sealed by a more stable goat emblem. During the kiss, a small mouth grew out of Sally's tongue, and an extremely gentle voice came out from it. Nicholas, you have to do your best. Han Dong, whose consciousness had been led to the neutron star prison, naturally did not know what was happening in the outside world. Moreover, he was currently going through an unprecedented journey of pain. The fusion of the land deed and the brain was equivalent to forcibly tearing open a physical space the size of a manor in the brain. The equivalent pain was equivalent to tearing Han Dong's entire body apart 18,753 times, and it was a tearing that touched on the soul level. The opening of the physical space, the fusion of the land deed and the brain, and the creation of the prototype of the prison world were all the responsibility of the Grey Walker. Han Dong only needed to do one thing. He had to stabilize his state of consciousness and insist on the completion of all the projects. Count's consciousness was bound to Han Dong's, and his consciousness had already collapsed at the 5th minute and 57th second. The underworld blood automatically built an egg structure to protect Count. The Hell Monk, Togu Gonzalez, who was in the prison, also showed an extremely uneasy expression. He, who was born from pain, also felt his scalp go numb from the tearing pain Han Dong was enduring. This level of pain is top-notch even in the monastery. Not many monks can withstand such a high-frequency tearing of the soul. Even I don't have 100% confidence that I can hold on for a long time. Master, you must hold on. As the prison was undergoing renovation, Togu and the others could not help. Miss Chun-Li even hid in the corner and cried silently. Tears condensed from resentment kept dripping down. She knew very well how much pain Han Dong was in now. Unbeknownst to him, Han Dong had fallen into a strange state. Chapter 1480. This kind of pain that even Togu did not have the confidence to endure. It was almost impossible for Han Dong to endure it from the beginning to the end just by relying on his own willpower. Even if his consciousness was indestructible, this kind of pain that broke through the limits would nibble away at his consciousness like a swarm of insects. Purely holding on would definitely not be able to last until the end. 3 minutes 21 seconds. At this time, Han Dong's collective consciousness was already showing signs of loosening and collapsing. Under the endless tearing pain, Han Dong only had less than 10% of the space to think. Unable to deeply imitate Togu, unable to borrow God. All abilities related to the head cannot be used during the transformation period. Count can't hold on anymore. Even if I use blood to water my mind and use death to maintain it, it won't have much effect on my consciousness. What should I do? The confidence that he had accumulated before this was slowly losing bit by bit. His consciousness was being nibbled away by the indescribable pain. It was similar to Sally's situation. When his consciousness was about to collapse, scenes of a carousel lantern flashed before his eyes. However, these scenes were not his and Sally's experiences, but his entire experience when he came to World S01. Searching for the head, sneaking into the holy city, seizing Nicholas' body. However, the carousel lantern scene froze midway. It froze in that strange town, in the area of the front door of an abandoned circus. Dense red balloons swarmed out of the circus's front door like a swarm of rats. Among the balloons was a pale clown with exaggerated red lips that Han Dong loathed. Wearing his trademark circus costume, he slowly walked out in his squeaky shoes. Nicholas, look at you now. It really makes people want to laugh. Ha, ha, while he was laughing crazily. Pennywise the clown actually took out a jigsaw from his waist and cut off his own head in front of Han Dong. His head did not fall to the ground. Instead, it was pulled by the red balloons and floated in the air, continuing to communicate with Han Dong. Did you fall to this state just because your head can't be used? What a disappointment. It's just a little bit of fatal pain. With the torso of the great clown, Pennywise, wouldn't I be able to adapt to it? Give it a try, ha ha. You will definitely feel very comfortable. With that said, the clown directly inserted his arm into his torso and began to stir wildly in his abdomen. You seem to have fused other attributes into my body. Some kind of zombie that can float. I like it. Suddenly, his perspective changed. Han Dong, who had been watching the clown's performance from afar, suddenly switched to first-person perspective. He had become the clown himself, who was stirring his abdomen. Meanwhile, Han Dong, whose consciousness was bound to the prison chair, bit down on the sturdy restraining device in his mouth. Crazy laughter came out of his body and echoed throughout the entire neutron star prison. The laughter even made the Gray Walker, who was modifying the brain, reveal a slightly surprised expression. It released some gray matter to block the indiscriminate invasion of the mad laughter. In the meantime, the black vortex on the surface of the torso began to spin faster. The merry-go-round in his brain continued to play, and it seemed to be searching for a certain scene. Through the adaptation of the torso, Han Dong had a slight sense of floating consciousness. The merry-go-round scene also paused to a special building in the Black Tower, Fight Club. 100 Treasure Body, combined with the memory scene to create an incomparably realistic scene in the deep consciousness. Fight members from different worlds surrounded a huge fighting field. The referee with a microphone announced loudly, "Next, our Mr. Han Dong will be engaged in a limitless ultimate battle. Let's see how long he can hold on, and whether he can break the existing record of the ultimate fight." As soon as the voice fell, a club member with 4 arms and full of iron blocks stepped out and fought with Han Dong. A pure fight was triggered. Every punch hit the opponent hard, and they fought with the most primitive desire. The pain caused by every punch was also clearly reflected on the body. However, as a participant in the unlimited fight, Han Dong needed to fight endlessly. After knocking down an opponent, another one would immediately come up. The physical pain caused by the fight didn't stop at all. With the help of Black Vortex Body's adaptive transfer, the upgraded tearing pain in the brain was transformed into a concrete pain caused by the fight. A pain that could be slowly digested by Han Dong and absorbed by the body. He could even use this pain to increase the purity of the body by a level. Slowly, Han Dong, who was tied to the chair, no longer struggled violently. Instead, it became a more regular pain, and there were even clear fist marks on the body. He maintained an exaggerated, crazy laugh throughout the process, as if he was enjoying it. He found that Han Dong's state of consciousness had reversed from the low point, and there was a trend of slowly getting better. The Gray Walker gave an evaluation. Sure enough, humans are the most interesting. An unknown amount of time passed. In the fighting field in the deep consciousness area, Han Dong had just completed the 38th fight challenge. His body was almost fragmented, and about 57% of his body showed signs of bone and flesh separation. There were even several times when Han Dong personally stuffed the spilled intestines back into his body and glued the completely torn flesh back to the bone. Even so, Han Dong still maintained a state of excited, crazy laughter and was completely immersed in the fight. At this moment, the fighting field dissipated with the surrounding members. Han Dong also realized that the tearing pain in his brain had completely faded. The Faceless Skull upgrade project has been completed. Due to the skull upgrade this time, a stage upgrade and a new space expansion has been achieved. Please go inside to check for specific changes. Just as Han Dong-Huai was about to head into the skull space to take a look, a voice suddenly rang out. Buzz! A trace of gray fog flashed, forcibly pacifying his consciousness. Unable to resist, his consciousness immediately fell into a deep sleep. This was the Gray Walker's method. He knew very well that although Han Dong felt good about himself, his body was on the verge of collapse. His consciousness was already riddled with holes, and any fluctuation could cause his consciousness to collapse. Rest was the most important thing for Han Dong. Secret Court Brain Integration Room. Oh, this is really bad. This kid's appetite is actually so big. The millions of brains that were originally the basic unit of the Brain Integration Room were now less than 100,000. Some of them were blown up due to overload, and some of them were sucked into the brainstem to provide energy for Han Dong. It was impossible to complete the brain here in a day or two. Sally, you take Han Dong's body and temporarily hide in his brain space for a while. His coma may last for a long time. I will take care of things here. Thank you, sir. Even if she had advanced to the mythical body, Sally still seemed very humble. As the Gray Walker approached, he reached out and touched Han Dong's forehead. The tentacle drilled a small hole in the skull that led to the internal space. With a burst of suction from the small hole, Han Dong and Sally were sucked in together. Chapter 1481. He couldn't remember how much time had passed. Han Dong, who was plagued by endless tiredness, felt as if he was sinking endlessly in a quagmire, until a ray of warm light gradually seeped in. The first thing he saw when he woke up was a 4-meter-tall, circular dome with exquisite cloud patterns carved on it. An exquisite kerosene lamp was hanging by the wall and burning faintly, illuminating the spacious and luxurious bedroom. In addition, Han Dong also felt two different sensations at the same time. One was that the back of his right hand was connected to a nerve-like infusion tube. Drops of nutrient liquid were constantly flowing into Han Dong's body to ensure that he was nourished during his coma. The second was the long black silk leg that was pressing on his body. It was a familiar feeling. Black Goat Sally, in the form of a teacher at the University of Michigan, was sleeping beside him. The goat leg transformed into a slender human leg and gently rested on Han Dong's body. The tentacles that extended slightly from the black silk could assist in adjusting Han Dong's body condition. At this moment, the fine tentacles on the surface of the black silk immediately transmitted the message that Han Dong had woken up to Sally. A pair of amethyst-like eyes opened, and for a moment, she was a little confused. Han Dong felt Sally's transformation and hurriedly congratulated her. "Sally, congratulations on your breakthrough." Unexpectedly, before he could finish speaking, a voice came from the other side. Sally suddenly flipped her body and rode on Han Dong's body, hugging him tightly. Han Dong could clearly feel drops of moist liquid falling on his shoulder. At this time, Han Dong did not act like a straight man. Instead, he placed one hand on Sally's head, stroking her hair and gently stroking her horns. "Sally, it's been hard on you." Sally paused and calmed her emotions. She tried her best to reply in a normal tone. "It's good that you're awake." "How long have I been asleep?" "About a month." "Huh, so long." This answer scared Han Dong so much that he sat up from the bed. The bright moonlight shone into the bedroom from the balcony and landed on the two naked people. "You have no idea how bad your condition is. 10 days ago, you even needed the Gray Walker to inject a gray essence into you to stabilize your condition. I've been by your side these days, afraid that something might happen to you. I'm sure now that I'm completely fine. I didn't think that the side effects of fusing the title deed with my head would be so strong. Sally, let's take a walk around the manor." Compared to the beauty in front of him, Han Dong was more interested in the upgraded faceless head. Han Dong had never seen what the Gray Walker had transformed the manor into. Now that the manor had fused with the brain, the embryonic form of the prison world was completely unknown to Han Dong. The more he thought about the prison and the manor, the more excited Han Dong became. He immediately pulled out the infusion catheter, and his black robe deepened. Caw! A crow landed on his shoulder. Han Dong seemed to have gotten used to such an image after teaching for half a semester. Sally hurriedly put on her skirt and blouse and followed him out. Has the Scarlet Mansion been overturned and rebuilt? This place looks more like a heavily guarded castle. The various forms of steel decorations and the heavy feeling of the black brick wall itself would make it hard for outsiders to breathe as they walked in here. Clang, clang, clang. At this time, a specially modified crowman slowly walked out of the passage. In addition to the crowman's characteristics and some steam technology modifications, there was also a heavy and dark steel armor embedded on his body. It was mainly made of spikes and ridges, and there were also some skull engravings on it. Visible to the naked eye, the armor was completely fused with the crowman's body and couldn't be separated. At the same time, the crowmen were dragging heavy chains in their hands, similar to Togu to a certain extent. "Warden, you're awake? Do you need me to do anything?" "Not for now." The crowmen gave Han Dong a completely different feeling. Although they had a master-servant relationship, there was an additional absolute obedience. Their strength had also greatly increased, and there was an additional attribute related to the prison. The combination of the manor and the prison has actually affected the residents. Moreover, This effect seems to have touched their roots. At this time, a notification sound came from his brain frowny face. As the embryonic form of the prison world has been formed, the warden system has been fully activated. For the residents living in the prison world, they will receive the infusion of prison power and obtain new power. At the same time, they will be divided into different levels of warden responsible for the management of the various areas of the prison world. At the same time, the area you are currently in is called the command tower, which is the management center of the prison world. The detailed structure of the tower has been generated in your brain. Warden system, the command tower, a series of data flowed into his brain. The entire warden system was in the form of a list directly imprinted in his brain, covering the Crowmen, Bloodkin, and Deep Ones. It didn't include the ghouls as experimental subjects, as well as the 3 special prisoners, Chun-Li, Togu, and Nico. At the same time, the command tower also had a very complicated structure. The overall design came from the Grey Walker, and the related materials were also taken from the top construction materials of the hybrid demon world, Chaos Magic Steel, and Cord Soundstone. The moment he stepped out of the tower, Han Dong was shocked by the scene in front of him. The manor that was once full of flowers and plants was replaced with a dark and dilapidated plain. The scale was equivalent to the size of a mythical land deed. The scattered residential houses of the manor were completely demolished and replaced with a completely different style, factory town. Currently, there were a total of 4 large factories of different styles distributed in different areas of the prison world. With the factories as the center, a small town was built around them for the wardens to rest and entertain. These factories were responsible for the production of various torture devices, warden equipment, prison equipment, and other important items. Although the prototype of the prison world had been formed, various external items still needed to be added. The wardens needed to work in exchange for necessities, and at the same time, they were proud of the construction and development of the prison world, making the best use of everything. As the warden, Han Dong quickly learned the corresponding names of the factory towns. Black Steel Town, with black smoke constantly rising, Quenching Town, with blue willow, the Wisp, Furnace Town, with extremely high heat and red in color, Torture Town, with a huge metal skull floating at the top of the factory. In addition, there were 3 extremely special buildings that floated in the air under the weight of the soil, connected to the ground by chains, somewhat similar to the floating corpse kingdom. They corresponded to each other. A Chinese-style country villa filled with resentment. A monastery engraved with the scriptures of hell. A huge conch half-submerged in the lake. These 3 buildings belong to the private residence of the warden's hand. They will assist in the management, execution, and protection of the prison world. As Han Dong stared at the special buildings suspended in the air, 3 figures mixed with different prison auras quickly descended along the chains connected to the ground. Chapter 1482. As the first detainee of the prison, it was naturally not as simple as receiving the warden's power. With the upgrade of the head, the 3 of them received the direct infusion of the world's origin, which gave them the corresponding imprisonment ability according to their respective characteristics. Chun-Li descended along the chain in a kind of invisible netherworld form. Except for the head with long hair covering her face, her body was condensed by a kind of netherworld gray fog, which could avoid most of the damage. At the same time, she could freely pass through the various areas of the prison world without any restrictions. When the netherworld condensed into a physical body, it would turn into a blade cloak with a metallic texture, which could attack together with the body. The cutting damage caused by the netherworld cloak would be strengthened by the concentration of resentment in the weapon Chun-Li held. At the same time, Chun-Li was appointed as a watcher. With the help of the netherworld form, she could go to various areas of the prison world and supervise the work of any area. Once she found a violator, or even a heretic who broke the rules, she could directly execute him. When she saw the fully recovered Han Dong standing in front of her, Chun-Li also directly condensed into a physical body and went forward to hug him. When Black Goat Sally saw this scene, she actually took the initiative to take a step away. She could feel that this woman, who had no physical body and only a soul, did not have feelings for Han Dong. Instead, it was a different kind of feeling. In addition, among the three of them, Togu was the one who was most affected by the prison upgrade. As a Hell monk, he was very suitable for this prison system. It seemed that even the Grey Walker also noticed this special visitor from Hell, so he was given more gifts when the prison was upgraded. After the fusion of the characteristics of the world chain in the zombie world, Togu was upgraded. Togu had been upgraded once again. The pain system that he carried had been upgraded to a type of torture system that could directly affect reality. The effects were as follows. During battle, all attacks would accumulate pain value in the enemy's body. When the pain value reached 30%, basic torture equipment could be randomly generated on the enemy's body. According to the different torture equipment, the corresponding effects would be produced: bleeding doubled, pain doubled, or movement restricted. When the pain value reached 70%, cruel torture equipment could be randomly generated on the enemy's body. According to the different torture equipment, it would produce effects similar to forcibly breaking limbs, twisting the body, or restricting the whole body. When the pain value reaches 100%, execution torture tool can be randomly generated on the enemy, giving the enemy endless pain and death. At the same time, Togu was appointed as the head of torture equipment. He was used to torture criminals who violated the rules of the world. In terms of appearance, there weren't many changes. Black leather clothes, chains pierced through the body, and needles all over the body. He was playing with a mysterious Rubik's Cube that symbolized torture equipment in his palm. Even Black Goat, Sally, was looking at Togu with a serious gaze. Just by standing here, one could faintly feel a pain similar to being pricked by needles. Nicole's change seemed to be the smallest. Her main performance was still the deep one, octopus fish, but the prison system had affected her deep-sea secret techniques to a certain extent, especially her sealing and healing secret techniques. Moreover, Nicole's healing secret techniques had miraculous effects on individuals in prison. However, Nicole hadn't been assigned any position for the time being. Perhaps she hadn't met the requirements in a certain aspect. After a simple greeting, Han Dong made a decision. I have an idea. In the next Destiny realm, I plan to have you all form a small team and go on a special adventure to improve yourselves. Okay, the three of them agreed. You can look for me anytime if there's anything. I have to go to the experimental area now. Next was the area that Han Dong valued the most. It could be said that it was one of the main goals that Han Dong pursued after reincarnating in the alternate world. With the fusion of the manor and the brain, the corresponding underground laboratory of the manor will definitely be fused with the corresponding biological laboratory in my brain. The biological laboratory is the area where my main body is stored. I wonder how safe it will be after the fusion. The entrances to the underground laboratories in the various areas of the manor were removed. If one wanted to head to the experimental area, they could only use the only elevator between the control towers. On the surface, only Han Dong, the warden, and Chun-like, the watcher, could head there directly. If the others wanted to take the elevator, they had to submit an application to Han Dong. One of the reasons why the manor was modified by the old king was because of the upgrade of my head. Another reason was that the ghouls I displayed in the London game attracted the interest of the higher-ups. The changes to the laboratory should be huge. Han Dong had already raised his expectations to a very high level. As the elevator descended, the new structure of the laboratory slowly revealed itself. Han Dong was stunned. It was a layered structure that could not be picked out. The underground laboratory was divided into 7 floors in the form of an inverted pyramid. Each floor was partitioned with the same materials as the control towers. Permission was required to go deeper into each floor. Furthermore, the old Grey King had given Han Dong a group of research teams. The Migo ethnic group has taken up residence in the underground laboratory. Considering the concealment of the laboratory, the Grey Walkers had removed the Migos' autonomous consciousness in advance, reducing them to mere tools under the control of the swollen professor. They would spend the rest of their lives in the laboratory. The second last floor was the original core laboratory, which was also the area where the professor worked. The elevator could only reach here. If one wanted to go to the lowest floor, they had to use other methods. The moment he smelled Han Dong's scent, the professor immediately went forward to greet him. His entire brain was jumping excitedly. "Lord, it's good that you're okay." The professor did not seem to be affected much. He still called Han Dong Lord. Han Dong asked with a worried expression, "Professor, what happened to your brain?" The professor's originally open brain was now wrapped in a prison-like skull. It was similar to a deep iron birdcage. "It's okay. This is a gift from the old Gray King. He tailor-made this skull monitor for me due to my contributions in the field of ghoul research. Not only can it protect my brain from harm, but it can also shield me from external interference and help me quickly enter the state of research. In times of danger, it can also increase the mental invasion of the brain. It is an epic-level chaotic equipment. Lord, you should have seen the Migo working up there, right? They are also under the control of the skull monitor. The overall efficiency of the current laboratory is about twice as high as before. Not bad. That's right. Did the old kings ask for our research results? No, they just asked me some basic questions and let me continue. When we have a real result of our research, there should be someone who will directly negotiate with you, my lord. Okay. Professor, have you been to the lowest floor? This, I can't go down. That's your private area. The Grey Walkers personally set up the seal. The professor was not curious about this at all. He knew that the room at the bottom must be related to Han Dong's absolute privacy. The enchantment set up by the old kings only allowed Han Dong to enter. Other individuals could not enter in any way. Sally could only wait above. Han Dong continued to go down. When he passed through the buffer room and arrived at the absolutely sterile biological laboratory, the old Gray King, in a small vest, was sitting in front of the sterile operating table, carefully watching Han Dong's cell body. Chapter 1483. Nicholas, do you know? Because our relationship with the Black Tower has been completely cut off. The Black Tower has been trying to limit the transfer of talents from the grassroots world to us. It has been a long time since a high-quality individual from the grassroots world was sent over. What I didn't expect was, you actually came here in such a state of cell integration. This matter made me think for a long time. Han Dong was a little surprised. Isn't marking and selecting talents in the grassroots world the responsibility of Senior, who is in charge of the world's power? No. After all, the World Network is created and managed by the Black Tower, and the grassroots world is also built by them. Therefore, there is only one possibility. It should be someone in charge of the project in the Black Tower who deliberately sent you here. But in order to hide, they used the form of a cell cluster. Nicholas, what is your current relationship with the Black Tower? Are there any higher-ups in contact with you? Such a question made Han Dong suddenly stunned. The next answer might touch on the most fundamental issue of opposition. However, as early as when Han Dong established a relationship with Mr. M, he also considered the current situation. The relationship between him and the Black Tower would be known by the hybrid demons one day. Yes, a higher-up of the Black Tower currently has a deeper relationship with me. However, according to my judgment, this higher-up is inclined to the middle and has a neutral attitude toward our world. And he has helped me many times, including the door opening not long ago. Even some of the joint invasions of a London game were secretly revealed to me by him. Han Dong answered truthfully, but he omitted the matter of him being selected as a candidate. He wanted to see the Grey Walker's attitude first. I guess it would be like this: not bad. Since the other party is willing to help you and even train you, continue to maintain this relationship. Anyway, the growth system you have chosen is fate. The other party may be able to give you more help than me. Well, the next time I go to the Black Tower, I will test the other party's bottom line. Oh, tell me about it. Some time ago, Sally and I went to the heart of the tree area in the Black Forest and met Mother Goddess once. The state of the Mother Goddess cannot be restored by relying on the current technology and materials of our world. It just so happened that the higher-up I came into contact with had a special substance that I verified to have a restorative effect on the Mother Goddess. Next time I'll try to get more of this substance. This matter is related to the complete recovery of a superior existence in our world. We will definitely be able to see the true attitude of this higher-up. Interesting. If the goat mother of the Black Forest can really recover, it will be a big threat to the Black Tower. Even I don't have the confidence to deal with that woman. Since that's the case, we'll do as you say. As long as it benefits you, I won't interfere. All right. Thank you, Senior, for the upgrade of my head this time. Well, I'm looking forward to your future growth. At present, the prototype of the prison world has been formed. When you travel through different destinies, you can try to absorb the essence of the world you are in. You're currently a node holder of a certain world, so you should understand what I mean. Of course, it has to be absorbed within the limits of the Black Tower's laws to prevent the matter of your head from being exposed. Well, Han Dong naturally understood what the Grey Walker meant. It was equivalent to letting Han Dong absorb the origin of other worlds. Once the world was sucked dry, it would completely collapse like the Pandora world. In addition, you should try to get as many world nodes as possible. When the time is right, you can integrate them all into your brain. Of course, once you do this, it means violating the sovereignty of the Black Tower, and may even become a fuse. I personally look forward to the arrival of this day. Well, integrating the world, Han Dong had never thought about it before. When the Grey Walker mentioned it, it seemed to be quite exciting. Moreover, there might not necessarily be a violation of sovereignty. As long as Han Dong could sit in the position of Mr. M and obtain absolute control of the world in advance, there would be no violation of sovereignty. At this time, the Grey Walker reached out and pointed to the laboratory with the mark of the Void. In addition, I don't have the ability to change the Void laboratory derived from you. If there is a chance, you could go to the Void. Even if your relationship with Bop is not good, you can still contact the Void through normal channels. Okay, one last thing. I heard that you plan to team up with Grimm, Sally, Hope, and Kit as a guide to bring them to the Destiny space? Yes, because Grimm and Kit are in the team, I am worried that there will be uncontrollable dangerous situations midway, but Grimm insists on it, so I can't help it. However, the Grey Walker not only did not object, but said in support, "That's good, bring them along." However, the specific date is still up to me to decide. On the day of the end of this semester, I will arrange for Grimm and the rest to meet you at Michigan University. You can use the deciphered Gate of Destiny in Michigan University to go there. Okay, there is still more than a month before the end of the semester, which was more than enough time to prepare. Since Sally has broken through the mythical level, the progress of the other origin substances is basically the same, so the corresponding difficulty of the Destiny space is bound to be very high. During this time, you should follow the vice principal and learn well, don't die. Okay, after the conversation ended, the Walker casually tore open a gray door full of ancient characters. Behind the door was a kingdom that belonged to him, and directly left the prison world. Han Dong, who was left alone, walked slowly in the laboratory, reaching out to touch the sterile operating table that was loaded with the body cells. Unknowingly, a circle of blood was reflected around his lips, drawing the outline of a maniacal laughter. The changes brought about by the upgrade of the head were too great. Han Dong never thought that the head could merge with the land deed, forming the prototype of a world. The excessive excitement caused the maniacal laughter to gush out from his body. The laughter lasted for close to 20 minutes in the laboratory, until a visible opening was torn open in his throat. After that, Han Dong spent 2 whole days to gain a comprehensive understanding of the prison world. The prison world was already operating in an orderly manner. The surface was supervised by Togu and Chun-Li, and the underground was monitored by Dr. Swollen. As long as there were no major problems, Han Dong did not need to personally deal with it. After confirming that everything was correct, Han Dong brought Sally back to reality. The two went straight back to the teacher's dormitory. The mailbox at the door did not have any private messages, and during this time, no one came to Han Dong. Obviously, The walker had already taken care of all the troublesome matters and even helped Han Dong apply for leave for special reasons. More than a month after returning to the life of a teacher, the agreed time to go to the Destiny space had finally arrived. Chapter 1484. The end of the semester. The list of outstanding teachers in Mishima University was made public, including Bob and Nicholas. There were a total of 5 teachers on the list. What was important to note was that only Han Dong was a lecturer. The rest were at least associate professors. Under the vice principal's recommendation, Han Dong was also promoted to associate professor. He would be tested at the beginning of the next semester. This meant that Han Dong would be able to touch upon the deeper levels of the library in the next semester. He would be able to use all of his accumulated teaching points and privileges. However, there was one last thing he needed to do at the school. Final exam as a lecturer in the biology department. Han Dong was not only in charge of writing and supervising the exam for hybrid demon structure study, he was also in charge of the interviews for the biology department students. Simply put, it was a strength test. After all, the original intention of the Mishima University was to use the sharing of knowledge to stimulate their potential and optimize the use of various abilities to increase their strength. A total of 50 students were under Han Dong's supervision. The interview was scheduled for the last day of the final exam. The students who were assigned to Han Dong were all very excited. From her perspective, Han Dong was the most outstanding teacher in the semester. At the same time, compared to the other teachers, he was also very friendly. Therefore, when they found out that the teacher in charge of the interview was Han Dong, they all thought that they had gotten lucky. They all went to the interview location to wait. Also, a portion of the students wanted to know if Han Dong's true strength matched his teaching ability. On the same day as the final exam, 3 individuals exuding powerful auras stepped into the school grounds with temporary passes in their hands. The leading man pressed his entire body against the ground. Through the nerve tentacles that came out from his body, he carefully captured the lingering scent of the school. This is a nice campus. I can smell the scent of many strong people. There is also the scent of my Nicholas. I should have come here to study before, but my father wouldn't let me study here. Another young man, whose body was covered in sewing marks and had a deathly look on his face, agreed. We are not compatible with this school. If we come here to study, we will violate the relevant rules. Everyone will be in trouble, including me. It is better to find a quiet place to die. The last of the 3 was completely captivated by the campus environment. He had once longed to study in such an advanced institution, but because he was born in a humble family, he had not done anything noteworthy during his growth. He had not been invited by the school before his atavism and missed such a learning opportunity. Now that he was able to step into the highest academy of the hybrid demons, one of his wishes had been fulfilled. Let's go. Let's go meet Nicholas. I heard that he's doing pretty well in this school. Biology department, teaching building number 1, examination room 0701. With a crow perched on his shoulder, Han Dong walked into the classroom in his standard teacher's attire. Today, we will be conducting the last part of the final exam, the interview. I have constructed a comparative model in my mind based on your basic information. Next, you will have a simple sparring session with me. I will give you an evaluation based on your usage of power, strength, and adaptability. When the students heard that they would be able to spar with lecturer Nicholas, they could not contain their excitement. Various weird smells, bodily fluids, and even living tissues started to appear. Immediately, a confident student stepped forward. The rest of the students also started to discuss. Dylan Fuji's. This is interesting. Professor Nicholas focuses on black magic research, but he seems to be weaker in the physical aspect. Both of them are atavism types. If Dylan really uses his full strength, the professor might not be able to handle it. Interesting, I wonder how the professor will deal with this. There were many elites in the University of Mishima. It was not uncommon for a student to be able to suppress a professor. When this student named Dylan took a step forward, the entire classroom trembled slightly, and a cold wind that came out of nowhere swept through the classroom. This student's entire body was covered in messy and fluffy white hair. The bridge of his nose was replaced by a sharp horn. His large mouth, which had no lip structure, was filled with terrifying and bloody sharp teeth. 6 thick hairy arms. His height was 5 meters. He came from a northern continent and belonged to the superior race, Nafkh. The cold wind that swept through the classroom was formed by his innate frost domain. In terms of strength, he was ranked in the top 5 of the current candidates. Professor Nicholas, my attacks will be based on cold wind and strength. Is that okay? Han Dong kept his hands behind his back and replied with a friendly face. Of course. Show me the most effective attack or the ability that you're most confident in. Don't waste too much time. I still have things to do later. Professor, be careful. Suddenly, the cold wind that swept through the classroom became several times stronger. It even formed ice crystals of different sizes on the ground. The 5-meter-tall body continued to expand, and its hair became thicker until it turned into a giant Arctic bear that was close to 4 meters tall. Its mouth split vertically and stretched all the way to its abdomen, forming a terrifying, devouring mouth. The frost domain could greatly restrict the target's movement. Upon contact, it could even produce a freezing effect. The moment its body was formed, it directly pounced on Han Dong. The scene in front of them even made some students worried. They were afraid that their professor would really be swallowed. But there were also students who hoped that this would happen. They hoped that this professor who had been praised to the heavens in a short period of time would fall. After all, teaching and personal strength were 2 different things. At this moment, an inexplicable smell of blood spread in the classroom. Count, play with him. Okay. Drip. An unusually clear sound of blood dripping came from Dylan's mind. What happened next would be unforgettable for him. Blood spurted out, blood vessels entangled, flesh and blood condensed. A blood dog that was bigger than him, stronger than him, and stronger than him quickly grew from Han Dong's right shoulder. The 2 were in a deadlock for about 5 seconds. Hundreds of saliva dripping from the blood dog's body grew from its body. They were aimed at the fatal parts of Dylan's body. Your strength isn't bad. Also, through hybrid demon structure study, you've developed a devouring ability with good compatibility. But your frost domain didn't seem to have improved much compared to last semester. White fur giant beast. You remind me of an old friend. You barely pass. Work hard next semester. After Han Dong gave his evaluation, he simultaneously recalled the blood dog. The frightened Dylan turned back into a student and staggered back. This kind of opening made the students hesitate, not daring to step forward. At this moment, crack! The classroom door was forcefully torn open by a black nail. 3 uninvited guests stepped into the classroom. HM? Nicholas, so you're playing house here. How boring. Hurry up and come with us. Just thinking about the Gate of Destiny makes me so excited that my whole body itches. Glenn, why are you here? This is a teaching assignment given to me by the school. I have to complete the assessment of all the students before I can leave. By the way, isn't the scheduled time tomorrow? So it's a mission from Mishima University? Then it's hard to refuse. How about this? We'll also help. This will save a lot of time. Students, what do you think? A student who was directly stared at by Glenn was so scared that his tentacles were stretched out. A large amount of stinky excrement even seeped out from the tip of his tentacles. He immediately collapsed to the ground. Chapter 1485. At the same time, as the second prime of a famous professor, Pop Mindar was naturally exempted from this kind of time-wasting final interview. He had already applied to leave the school a few days ago, and what he submitted was a long-term leave of absence without a specific time written on it. Pop, who had left the school, once again came to the original location of London. Because of the friendship in the London game, Evernight's mother had received a promotion as the Old King. Coupled with the complete destruction of London's title deed, she had already left Earth and obtained the opportunity to go to Sharnith Grey Kingdom. This was also her dream all along, to stay with the faceless king that she was most infatuated with. Within half a year, a similar city-state had been built on the original location of London, and it was called New London. The overall religious style was even more intense. New London was naturally controlled by Father Lessos, and he had already obtained his own mythical title deed. The entire city was under the control of the Church of Evernight. However, Pop naturally didn't come here to see how New London was like, but to keep an appointment. The Void Gate opened on a hill 130 kilometers away from New London. Pop had just stepped out not long ago. A bone-piercing chill assaulted him. This chill was on a completely different level compared to the student that Han Dong had tested previously. It could even easily freeze the student from a northern continent. Aslan, congratulations. You seem to have created a pretty good mythical creature. Same to you. As the area that he was about to go to required him to maintain human identification, Aslan naturally maintained his human form. He still looked the same as before, wearing a white shirt and squinting eyes. However, the overall feeling that he gave off was more dangerous, and the extreme cold and burning had reached a whole new level. By the way, haven't the others arrived yet? Just as Aslan said this sentence, a wave of sound came from the forest. I arrived a week ago. This made Aslan open his eyes slightly and stare into the depths of the forest, peeking at an extremely terrifying scene. What was in front of him wasn't a forest at all, but a barren hill. Aslan switched to using his battle vision to observe and realized that these green plants were all eyeball assemblages. The entire mountain was disguised as a forest by the eyeballs, and through the almost perfect visual refraction, it made everyone look like a real forest. Eugene's main body was resting in the depths of the forest. Was Eugene's fellow completely transformed by the London Games? Or is it because of the changes brought about by the first part of the demonic book, Corpse-Eating Cult Rituals? It seems to have created a rather powerful mythological system. Although Aslan's expression did not change, she was rather unhappy in her heart. At this moment, a wave of drowsiness swept over him. In the blink of an eye, a charming woman appeared at the top of the hill. At this moment, Bop also tore open a spatial tunnel that could cross the continent, indicating for everyone to come together. Vader is unable to participate in this event due to some important matters in the celestial realm. As for Haida, he has already prepared a ship for us. Everyone has arrived, so let's set off. Wait, where's my boyfriend? The 6th Prime, Helen Hilbur, was still looking around at the top of the hill, but she couldn't find the young man she missed every night. We'll naturally meet later. Under Bop's signal, everyone stepped into the space tunnel one after another. The entire mountainous forest turned into hundreds of millions of eyeballs, which converged into a green-haired youth. He was the last one to step into the spatial rift. In the next second, they arrived at the island closest to the South Pole. As the South Pole was a forbidden zone for invaders in ancient times, there were still floating corpses wandering around inside. For safety's sake, Bop decided to take a ship. A large sailboat made of corals, living octopus tentacles, and seabed stones quickly emerged from the deep sea, leaping out of the sea surface. As the captain, Haida Darius was waiting for everyone on the ship. As everyone boarded the ship, this sailboat named Stubborn Tentacle was already heading toward the South Pole at a speed of 100 nautical miles per hour. The moment Bop boarded the ship, he smelled a scent that did not belong to the deep sea, nor did it belong to the hybrid demons. He followed the scent to the depths of the ship's cabin, where there was almost no pollution or fishy smell in the guest room. A young man wearing a monolithic bronze mirror was studying a book here. Demps, is everything ready? Yes. With our lineup and Bop's ability, even if we are targeted by the Destiny realm, ensuring a basic survival rate is absolutely not a problem. The main thing is how much we can harvest. Yes, I believe in your ability. Bop teleported a stool to Demp's side, and together they carried out the preliminary plan. That's right, this gathering was with Demps as the guide, and Bop as the captain preparing to explore the Destiny realm, and the Destiny entrance that Bop chose was the Gate of Destiny in the center of the South Pole. The main reason was that Eugene had already entered the Destiny realm through this entrance and successfully survived, so it might be safer than the Gate of Destiny in Michigan University. Most importantly, Bop received a revelation from his teacher, and the location was also South Pole. At the same time, the revelation also gave an exact time, which was tomorrow, which was the first day of the Michigan University's finals. Michigan University, Biology, building outside, classroom 701, there were many students whose bodies were in a mess and their eyes were lifeless. There were even some students who clearly did not have any external injuries, but were unable to maintain their original form. One could feel the most ancient, most primitive emotion from them: fear. The interview in the classroom had just ended. Han Dong wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Looks like Green still knows the rules of Michigan University and will not casually kill people. It's just that the few students that Green personally interviewed will need a long time of psychological counseling. Han Dong was still quite merciful. As long as their bodies did not collapse, their results would be above passing. Outside the teaching building, Green put one hand on Han Dong's shoulder and excitedly asked about his experiences during this period. Because of Green's arrival, Sally could only follow behind and temporarily maintain a certain distance from Han Dong. When she looked at Green, whom she had not seen for several months, as long as her line of sight stayed for more than 3 seconds, she would be swallowed by the endless abyss. The feeling was completely different from before. The mythical structure that Green had created was extremely terrifying. Nicholas, why don't we set off now? I can't wait. Senior Gray specifically reminded me about the time of entry, so let's wait until tomorrow. How about this? Since you all have completed the mythical structure, I think some of your special abilities have changed. Why don't we all adapt to each of your abilities in advance? Okay, how about this? Later, when we choose the location, you all come together. Don't hold back. I just want to test the limits of the newly constructed abyss body. Chapter 1486. Misha University, Teachers' Training Grounds. Due to special reasons, Kit did not participate in this warm-up match before entering the Destiny Realm. After all, if Kit's ability were spread out uncontrollably, even Misha University's campus could be contaminated. The training grounds used an adaptive space simulation to create a combat field suitable for the current number of people and levels. Under a huge rock at the edge of the area, Han Dong's body was almost torn apart. Only, the current Han Dong did not care about the injuries to his body at all. Instead, he was in a rush to psychological counseling by eating red fruits and laughing madly to get rid of the discomfort. Sally and Hope were in a similar state. One of the more obvious features was the black eye pouch. Different from normal eye pouches, these eye pouches were densely packed with small abysses all around the eye socket. It seemed to belong to a different form of contamination, and also seemed to belong to Grimm's new characteristic. It was an ability he realized from the Abyss Party. At this time, in a simulated mountain a few hundred meters away, Grimm, with a broken arm, slowly crawled out from a crack in the wall, enjoying this warm-up battle very much. Sure enough, everyone is strong, just as Grimm wanted to continue. Han Dong forcibly supported his body that was about to collapse and crossed space to stand in front of Grimm. His words contained the invading characteristic of crazy laughter. Grimm, let's stop here for today. If we continue like this, it will affect our state when we enter the Destiny Realm tomorrow. Everyone's mythical characteristics are more or less familiar with each other. If you still think it's not enough, I'll play with you alone tonight. Han Dong could see that Grimm was in a state of excitement, and his madness had accumulated to a certain extent. He could only deliberately add in the last sentence to suppress Grimm's state. Once Grimm went crazy, the follow-up would be very troublesome. Following Han Dong's words, the black nail that was about to burst out of Grimm's mouth was slowly swallowed back. Miss Lau's weapon was not used in the end. Smack! One hand wrapped around Han Dong's shoulder, a tongue full of holes hung by Han Dong's ear, and asked softly, "Tonight, what do you want to play? You'll know in a bit." The warm-up match unknowingly went from day to night. Han Dong led the starving group to the cafeteria. Gritting his teeth, he spent almost 1,000 teaching points, allowing everyone to enjoy a meal that could send their souls to the kingdom of taste. The dinner made Glenn lie on the table and twitch for 3 whole hours. His tongue hung from the side of his face, and his face was filled with a strange expression. Although Grimm was the child of destiny from the center of chaos, his daily food was basically taken from abyssal creatures. There was no processing at all, so he was used to eating them raw. Suddenly enjoying the ultimate delicacy, Grimm obtained absolute physical and mental satisfaction. The madness in his body was completely suppressed. At the same time, there was Hope, the hominoid, who was even more unbelievable. The food made him truly revert to his ancestral state. He was roaring in the private room like a monkey. If Han Dong hadn't stopped him, the whole cafeteria would have been destroyed. The only difference was Kit. He only had one comment for the incomparably delicious food. It stinks. His existence was disordered relative to the world itself. And those filthy, stinking, and disordered things were the real delicacies in Kit's eyes. As such, the scene in front of him evolved into Grimm, who was covered in grease, was twitching and laughing crazily on the table. Hope was jumping around like a monkey, and all kinds of plates were smashed by him. Kit pinched his nose with one hand to block the stench, and the other hand was seriously writing a suicide plan. Nicholas, will this team really be okay? Sally took the rare opportunity to lean on Han Dong. The scene in front of her made her very worried about tomorrow's situation. Han Dong also had a helpless expression. At least this meal made everyone return to their peak state. It looks like they won't be able to go back today. Just sleep in the private room. When we enter the Destiny realm, I will do my best to restrain Grimm. The next day, on the exclusive school bus to Misha University, Destiny's Gate, Hominoid Hope was apologizing to everyone for his rude behavior last night. But Grimm didn't take it seriously at all. He even packed breakfast in the cafeteria and acted as a quiet eater. He had no intention of sharing the food with everyone. The Destiny's Gate in Misha University, which was carried by the Yellow Sand Colossus, came from Cairo, the capital of Egypt. It had been transferred to the management building by the technicians. Han Dong led everyone into the black pillar-like building after the formalities were completed. The Yith who was in charge of receiving and leading the way immediately recognized the identity of the Prime, especially when he recognized Mad Devil Grimm. He forgot all his lines and only dared to lead the way in front without saying a word. "Excuse me, have you modified the Destiny's Gate enough for the hybrid demons to enter?" "Yes. Currently, it can maintain 70% of the recognition resistance. According to my observation, other than the 9th Prime, all of your humanoid forms can be recognized successfully. However, we have received instructions from above, and the 9th Prime has designed a set of humanoid equipment. Thank you for your hard work." They passed through a channel that looked like a drainage channel, flowing with a green substance. Inside a stone building that looked like an ancient temple, they saw the completely modified Destiny's Gate. The whole thing had a green, oval shape, clustered in a brain tissue that looked like a broccoli flower. There were also dozens of Yith engineers on the scene responsible for adjusting the stability. Kit was temporarily taken to a room on the side to receive a special modification from the Yith. They waited for about half an hour. A kid who looked to be in his 20s, wearing a gray windbreaker, returned to the group. The highly recognizable stitches were still there, and the suicidal look in his eyes couldn't be hidden. The original ghoul skin had been replaced with a kind of extremely tough, humanoid skin material that had magical binding properties. It was priceless. Overall, it gave Han Dong a feeling that it was more human and appeared to be more positive. "Kit, this journey of destiny is very important to me. I'm counting on you." Facing Han Dong's sincere request, Kit's eyes actually became clear, and the haze of suicide was temporarily dispelled. "Yes, Sari has already told me about this matter seriously. I already know that this is a path of growth that belongs to Mr. Nicholas. Don't worry, before I find a way to commit suicide, I will do my best to help." Since that was the case, Han Dong didn't waste any more time, and ordered everyone to enter the Destiny's Gate in a state of entanglement with tentacles or hand in hand. Staring at the green door in front of him, Han Dong also took a deep breath. The upcoming Destiny's Gate was something he had never experienced before. It would be a brand new adventure that surpassed true destiny. He didn't know what kind of form it would take and what the specific rewards would be. Chapter 1487. Official Employee. Han Dong, you have been connected to the transit station, Black Tower. Because you're going to the Destiny Realm with a teammate with the hybrid demon attribute, your time in the transit station is limited to 3 days. Once the time limit is reached, regardless of whether you are in the Black Tower, whether you choose the event or the relevant mission, the Destiny event will start directly. As the familiar system prompt sounded in his mind, Han Dong was already standing in the familiar square. 3 days? That's enough. The only thing I need to do in the transit station is to gather information. Nothing else matters. I need to figure out what will happen to the Destiny event after using the treasure map, and what will happen to the Destiny event corresponding to the gate opening level. However, there is no need to trouble Mr. M with this kind of thing. Should I go to the Fight Club or figure it out myself? Considering the time limit, Han Dong finally gave up on going to the club. After all, according to the rules set by the Fight Club, once Han Dong entered the club area, he may receive an irresistible challenge. Once he fought with the monsters in the club, even if he barely won, he was bound to lie in the hospital for a few days afterwards. Not only did he not get any information, but he also entered the Destiny event in a heavily injured state. Suddenly, a light flashed in Han Dong's mind. At the same time, a voice came from behind him. Nicholas, you are finally here. The sales channel of Pyrolite has been completely negotiated. This is the first order given by the other party. I hope you can spare some time. I will be responsible for the production site and the various conditions required. You only need to produce Pyrolite. Because this channel has just been laid out, it requires a lot of cost to maintain, and it is difficult to achieve a 50-50 split. Let's first split this batch of goods 40 to 60, and then try to get a 50-50 split later. What do you think? Sure enough, Han Dong was targeted by the handsome Jack as soon as he arrived. After all, in his eyes, Han Dong was the condensation of the Pandora world, an endless source of Pyrolite, a mobile treasury. Han Dong took the order and calculated according to the supply and price in his mind. The final result was that it would take 50 hours of continuous production to meet the requirements of the order. The other party's offer was frighteningly high. Even if they split the profits according to the 40 to 60 ratio, Han Dong would still have 3,800 Destiny points. After all, when Han Dong first obtained Node, Ghost Stories, the yearly rental had only been 60 points. Han Dong was able to purchase a lot of precious materials and necessities in the Black Tower. He could even buy a few bottles of potions to bring with him to the Fate event. Of course, the risks involved in this transaction must also be considered. For an extremely paranoid capitalist like Jack, it was entirely possible that he had set a trap for Han Dong. He would try his best to restrict Han Dong, or even remove his consciousness and make him into a special Pyrolite production device. Han Dong looked at the order and replied with a normal expression. Mr. Jack, since this is the first business deal and the channel is still unstable, why don't we split it 30 to 70? I'll take 30%, you take 70%, but I hope to get some information about the Destiny realm from Mr. Jack. Jack was also a smart person. He pinched the skin on his face with his fingers and forced a smile. Oh, looks like you're planning to enter the Destiny realm for the first time since the opening of the door. Of course. We're partners, and I'm the best at gathering information. I'll definitely satisfy your request. After all, if you die, the entire Pyrolite channel will be gone. When this transaction is over, I'll provide you with all the information you need. For now, follow me. I'll bring you to a secret area that can safely produce Pyrolite. Okay. Han Dong had already secretly sent a message to a certain someone through the Black Tower's communication device. Before the two of them even left the plaza, they bumped into a headless old man with thick black hair floating around his neck. After not seeing him for a long time, the resentment emitted by the headless old man was even stronger. As soon as the two sides met, Jack felt as if a hand full of ghost faces was squeezing his body at the level of conception. "Yo, where you taking my little brother Han Dong?" Jack replied with an awkward expression. "It's just a small business deal. Han Dong and I have already reached a cooperation agreement. Since the business deal involves things that can't see the light of day, it needs to be done in a secret place." "Huh." The headless old man's fat hand pressed against Han Dong's chest. An aura that couldn't be removed was imprinted on his chest in the form of hair. Mark of resentment. True. Once I notice anything strange about little brother Han Dong, I'll bring the irascible old man from the club to greet him personally. I'm not the only one who has a good relationship with little brother Han Dong in the club. Even the president has high hopes for him. Remember to get along well with him. Before leaving, the headless old man buried Han Dong's head into his fat belly and wrapped it around him 3 times to express the sincere friendship between the two of them. The following transaction was naturally normal. No matter how daring the handsome Jack was, he didn't dare to provoke an organization like the Fight Club. Once he was targeted by the lunatics, his life in the Black Tower would come to an end. In a secret room, hidden in an alley of the Black Tower, Han Dong's whole body was covered with 4 drips. Highly concentrated nutrient solution was continuously injected into his body. He didn't sleep or rest for a total of 50 hours. He used his right arm to produce enough pie gold. Due to the threat from the headless old man, the handsome Jack had considered Han Dong's body condition a few times and asked if he needed to rest. Although Han Dong wanted a rest, the 3-day restriction deprived him of this right. Ding! 3,600 points have been deposited into your account. You can use them anywhere in the Black Tower. Special reminder, there are only 18 hours left before the Destiny event starts. Please select the mission target or the relevant event before the time limit is up. After completing the first pie or transaction, Jack transferred the points into Han Dong's account according to the 40-60 split. At the same time, he also brought back a stack of information that Han Dong needed. On the folder, there were 4 words, Unknown Destiny. Normal Destiny promotes the development of the Seed of Destiny. True Destiny provides the relevant points to the talent tree. After seeing the Door of Truth, Han Dong had reached a whole new level after opening the door. He welcomed a higher level of Destiny adventure, which was defined by the Black Tower as Unknown Destiny. As expected, this level of Destiny event will directly occur in a large world or even a higher level world. There won't be too many fixed events to guide it. It will be more flexible, and at the same time, it will touch upon the essence of the corresponding world. No wonder the seniors in the Holy City didn't rush into the adventure during the 1-year cool-down period after opening the door. Instead, they needed to make sufficient preparations before entering. If they weren't careful, they would lose their lives. The opportunities provided by Unknown Destiny are also completely unknown. It might even be like Captain Malone who obtained the right to the throne in another world. Chapter 1488. The files brought by the handsome Jack covered almost all the information Han Dong wanted, except for the treasure map. After all, Han Dong did not want to reveal the treasure map to this business partner. In addition to introducing matters related to the unknown fate, this document also mentioned one point: the mythical path corresponding to the fate system. This was the stage Han Dong was currently at. The document clearly explained the detailed process from the gate opening stage to the mythical stage. Fate system. This was a self-created leveling system created by the Black Tower by combining the advantages of the myriad worlds' leveling systems. It simplified the entire leveling process through a system similar to a game's numerical and attribute system. Whether it was the fate points required for the seed stage or the 5 general directions, the Holy City corresponded to the Crusader, Library, Control, Machinery, and Mysticism, as well as the talent points required for the subsequent tree-breaking seed stage, which could be allocated to the different talents of the individual. Talents came from the individual's personalized abilities during the seed-breaking stage, such as Han Dong's faceless myth, dark magic, and journey of insane laughter. The average Holy City Knight would usually derive 2 traits, but Han Dong had more and better choices due to his dual cultivation. The seemingly game-like point allocation and self-selection was actually an optimization measure of the fate system. The growth experience of the individual in the fate events was compressed and stored in the form of experience points and would be released in one breath at the time of settlement. Compared to conventional training, it was easier to grasp, self-selection was more intuitive, and there was a greater sense of harvest. Similarly, the talent tree was formed, and the individual reached the gate opening level. The fate system still provided a set of optimized leveling plans in the form of a numerical mythical path. As long as one kept going to unknown fate to meet the requirements, one would be able to steadily advance to the mythical stage. Moreover, the points required to go from gate opening to mythical were less than before. In Han Dong's case, the points required were 3, but the 3 here was not 3 points, but 3 pieces of the puzzle. When the individual experienced the extremely difficult, unknown fate, the system would give a detailed score based on the type of events completed, the individual's perception and harvest in the fate events, as well as the main abilities displayed. The score would be announced at the time of settlement, mainly in 2 general directions. Passing score. You will receive a complete mythical puzzle, and the type of puzzle will be related to the destiny of this event. For example, in this event, the ability of the mad laughter played a key role, and you will receive a mythical puzzle of the mad laughter. Rating failed, the individual would obtain a puzzle piece. After the cooldown period, 1 year, more pieces would be obtained through more unknown fates to complete the puzzle. In the meantime, under the condition of passing, mythical puzzles of different quality would be obtained according to the individual's specific experience. There were a total of 4 grades: normal, rare, epic, legendary. The higher the difficulty of the unknown fate, the higher the completion rate, and the higher the individual's world intervention rate, the higher the quality of the final puzzle. If an individual is not satisfied with the quality of the puzzle, they can choose to give up on the puzzle and obtain it again in the next fate event. Note, puzzles cannot be accumulated. No matter how many low-quality puzzles you have, you will not be able to combine them into a high-quality puzzle. You can only start over after giving up. Once a mythological puzzle was installed, it couldn't be abandoned. The individual would obtain a corresponding ability. Example: Han Dong cleared the unknown fate and passed the rating. He received a piece of the myth of the faceless face puzzle. Once this puzzle was installed, he would obtain an epic quality of the faceless face trait: Man of the Door, Dark Abyss Whisker, etc. When Han Dong assembled the 3 pieces of the myth of the faceless face, dark magic, and the journey of the mad laughter, he would be able to proceed with the crucial mythical construction. Promotion to mythical body. This was the corresponding mythical path of the fate system, because the individual had witnessed the truth. In addition to obtaining mythical puzzles through fate events, one could also perfect the corresponding pieces or lay the relevant foundation through self-reflection and training. For example, when Han Dong was at the University of Mishu, he learned dark magic from the vice principal. The corresponding mythical puzzles were also slowly being constructed. Mythical fragments. I have 3 talents, so I need 3 pieces to perfect them. A regular knight would only need 1 or 2 fragments. However, in the Holy City, there are hundreds of elite knights who can open the door, but only a handful of mythical bodies. It can be seen that even a piece of mythical fragment is difficult to obtain. It is not easy to construct a myth. After a full 50 hours of high-intensity production of rhenium gold, although he had enough nutrition, he was quite tired mentally. "Mr. Jack, I'll sleep here for a while. Just rest. My personal nurse will take care of you." Because of the threat from the Fight Club, Han Dong was not worried that Jack would do something sneaky. He set the 10-hour alarm and went to sleep immediately. Indeed, when Jack stared at the sleeping Han Dong, he immediately came up with no less than 5 terrible methods in his mind. In the end, he completely gave up. "Have a good rest, Mr. Han. Don't die in the upcoming unknown fate. 8 hours left before the event begins. Han Dong, who left the secret alley, immediately rushed to the nearest trading house. In the face of an extremely difficult, unknown fate, leading a team that was similar to a suicide squad, it was necessary to prepare beforehand. This was also why Han Dong spent 50 hours of precious time working for Jack. Potions were a necessity. Han Dong first bought high-grade potions that reached the limit of his carrying capacity. There was no need for equipment. Not to mention the expensive price of finished equipment. Han Dong's current equipment was basically enough. As a body of origin, he naturally did not lack equipment. In the next trading house search, Han Dong found a very interesting but expensive item. This item belonged to the Black Tower's own sale, which was an exclusive item sold by the Black Tower. Lucky dice price, fixed at 2,000 points per piece. Authorization, only allowed official employees or above to purchase, limited to 1 per year. Usage, when an individual activates a destiny event, the lucky dice can be consumed simultaneously. According to the number of points obtained from the dice, there's a greater possibility to go to a world that matches the individual's attributes. The initial state of the individual's initial identity in the world may be better. This item is only effective for random events. It cannot be used for special missions assigned by the Black Tower. Good stuff, but it's a little expensive. Han Dong made up his mind and bought it. After all, with the trade route provided by Jack, obtaining points in the future would not be a problem. It's about time. Let's get ready to go. As for Togu and the others, let's wait until the unknown fate ends before arranging things for them. They are also very good helpers, not to mention that the brain upgrade will also upgrade them. After making all the preparations, Han Dong went straight to the Black Tower's office. Chapter 1489. 2,000 points worth of luck dice were exchanged for and placed into Han Dong's pocket in the form of a card. This is somewhat similar to the early cards of fate, where one can obtain some innate privileges when making a choice of fate. However, the effect of this kind of luck dice is better. It is equivalent to increasing the luck value according to the number of points thrown. Han Dong stared at the dice card in his hand and had to guess his mind frowny face the luck dice has a very obvious cheating meaning. The luck value provided will allow me to be randomized to a more suitable world. The starting conditions will also have a higher probability of being good, greatly increasing the survival rate. Considering the high value of the dice and the fact that it is limited to employees working for the Black Tower, it is a kind of talent protection measure belonging to the Black Tower. At the same time, it can greatly recover the points of the employees, making them work harder to accept high-point reward missions or actively carry out related events. Although it is similar to the capitalist method of exploitation, it is also a good thing for me. I happen to need this method to reduce the difficulty. There's still a few hours left. Let's go directly to the Black Tower's office to inquire about the treasure map. As an official employee, Han Dong applied for an exclusive reception seat and spoke with a staff member in a separate room. Mr. Han Dong, we have found that your existence is abnormal. There are still 4 hours and 21 minutes left before the fate event targeted at you will be forcibly activated. Is there anything we can help you with before that? Han Dong directly took out the treasure map and placed it on the table. If I use this treasure map, what kind of specific effect will it have on unknown fate? The staff member wearing the whirlpool mask seemed to have the authority to connect his brain to the database and immediately gave Han Dong the answer he wanted. Once the treasure map of fate in your hand is used, you and your team members will be limited to matching with unknown fate containing precious treasures. The difficulty is at least and above. When you are carrying out related activities in the world, you will be able to obtain clues about the treasure from the surface or the dark side. Please excavate on your own. However, the treasure is not too related to the main event. Please rationally pursue the treasure while ensuring your own safety. May I ask, will the treasure map in my hand indicate the location of the treasure, or will it give a related clue? Not really. The Destiny treasure map is only a privilege that allows you to go to the Destiny world where the treasure is stored. It will not play any role in guiding you. Han Dong continued to ask, Are there any other fate parties in the worlds that the treasure map of fate reaches? There will be. Ever since the activation of True Fate, we have added a counter system. The conflict between the participants of Fate played an important role in maintaining the balance of the Black Tower. If other teams also use the treasure map during this period of time, or use other privileges, under the condition that the matching value is not too different, you will be arranged to be in the same world. Han Dong threw out the third question. Is there only one treasure here, or are there more? What's the quality of the reward? The treasure maps of destiny all correspond to the only ultimate treasure, and at the same time, there may also be some ordinary treasures. Based on your current level, the ultimate treasure will definitely give you a piece of legendary equipment. All right, one last question. Can I still use the lucky dice while using the treasure map? You can. Having obtained the answer, Han Dong sunk into deep thought, analyzing the situation he was about to face. 1. The treasure map will make the Destiny event's difficulty sharply increase, but the treasure itself is not a main quest, so extra time is needed. 2. Since there are other teams, there will inevitably be conflicts during the treasure hunt. Since they can obtain a priceless treasure map and are willing to pay to enter the treasure world, the other team's strength is definitely not ordinary. 3. This is my first time going through Unknown Fate. I don't have enough experience, so I still need to act as a guide for the suicide team. Fortunately, the team's strength is very strong. In the end, should I use the treasure map here or not? Or should I wait until next year? Just as Han Dong sunk into a state of hesitation, several scenes flashed through his mind. One was the thrilling scene when he and Green cooperated to deal with the Emperor's Slayer. In a situation of absolute crisis, Han Dong's peers were not more reliable than Green. The other was not long ago when Han Dong led the team to the Gate of Destiny. After stepping into the Gate of Destiny, Kit responded with a serious face. For a moment, his crazy laughter bubbled up, making Han Dong's lips print a scarlet smile. Ha ha ha, what am I worried about? Wasn't the purpose of forming this team in the beginning to use the powerful force of the Origin and the Destiny Space's unevaluated hybrid demon characteristics to seize the final treasure? The instability will decrease with the increase of time and danger. Moreover, I've already cooperated with them many times. Now, I urgently need a legendary equipment to keep up with the pace. The world gear is already accelerating. I can't stop for a moment. Let's do it. Thinking of this, Han Dong immediately told the staff of his decision. With the treasure map of destiny and the lucky dice, he followed the staff to the entrance. When you enter, the system will prompt you whether or not to use the relevant items. Good luck, employee Han Dong. Okay. As Han Dong stepped in, a string of special information passed through the built-in network directly to the upper levels of the Black Tower. High-level conference room. Mr. M and more than 10 executives with alphabetical code names were gathered here through perfect projection. The commissioner reported the information that had just been intercepted. Just now, several mythical entities with extremely high potential value, disguised as humans and interfered with a portal, respectively entered two different entrances of World S-01. Both teams were led by a door-level human. One of the humans was an employee of the Black Tower. After a short stay in the Black Tower, he chose to consume the Destiny treasure map to change the unknown fate that he was about to face. At the end of the report, one of the executives responded frowny face. So it really came? It seems that the information we obtained from the Void is not a problem. The hybrid demons sent a group of talented juniors to show us in person. This kind of direct representation through the Fate event is more valuable than the previous invasion plans. In that case, arrange these two teams in the same world. Since they both came from World S-01, the treasure map of destiny was allowed to cover both teams. That's right, Madam B. Balance. Have the teams for the confrontation of fate been arranged? Don't worry, they're all high-rated teams from Superworld. Although the balance of the world is slightly tilted, it will not affect the overall progress of the event and can provide us with more direct reference data. Then let the event officially begin. Chapter 1490. Enter as Han Dong stepped into it. It also announced that the Destiny event was about to begin. Before the event officially started, the system detected that Han Dong was carrying a special item on him. So he was temporarily brought to a pure white space similar to the calculation area. On the white table, there was a treasure map of destiny and a six-sided die. Han Dong unhesitatingly opened the scroll. Destiny treasure map has been used. The system detected that a total of 2 teams from World S-01 entered the Destiny space from 2 different entrances at the same time. After discussion with the Black Tower, the 2 teams will be affected by the treasure map and will be placed in the same world. Because this choice will increase the difficulty of finding the treasure chest, as the owner of the treasure map, you will receive the corresponding compensation. The compensation is as follows. If you can obtain the final treasure during the event, the treasure reward will change from random to individual compatibility. The treasure chest will detect your individual attributes and will definitely randomly open an item that is suitable for you. If you cannot obtain the final treasure, you will also receive a compensation treasure chest. At the very least, it will open an epic material with a low probability of opening a legendary material and an extremely low probability of opening a legendary equipment. This kind of notification made Han Dong laugh like a maniac. As expected, all of this was premeditated. No wonder the old Gray King didn't object to me bringing Green and the others into the Destiny space, but instead was very supportive of this action. At the same time, he only asked for one condition, which was the time of our entry. This way, the Suicide Squad I lead and the Rational Squad led by Demps and Bop can enter the Destiny space at the same time. It seems like the higher-ups are very idle all day long. Are they trying to come up with a game again? But there is one thing I don't understand. Why would the higher-ups support this kind of decision that could possibly ruin the lives of talented juniors? The current generation of protoplasm is the last batch of talents in hundreds of years. The Black Tower definitely has the ability to detect how strong Green and the others' potential is, not to mention their performance in the London game, which must have attracted the Black Tower's attention. Considering the opposing relationship between the 2 sides, if the Black Tower manipulates behind the scenes, they will directly give us a dead end without an answer, and all of the protoplasm will be buried in it. Why are the higher-ups so sure that the Black Tower won't do this kind of thing? Or could it be that the relationship between the 2 sides wasn't just antagonistic, but also something else that I didn't know of that was even more important than being antagonistic? This unknown relationship might explain why I wasn't rejected even though I was a guest of S-01 and had hybrid demon attributes. Why come out alive? I'll ask Mr. M again. There must be a secret that touches the top. No matter what, it was still a good thing. Although Bop's arrival would increase the difficulty of obtaining the treasures, it would still be beneficial for clearing the event and fighting against fate. At the crucial moment, our 2 teams can form a cooperative relationship and fight against the other treasure hunting teams together. Moreover, the system's compensation was also great. This way, the worry of the equipment being unsuitable for him would completely disappear and his efforts would not be wasted. Let's prepare for a good fight. In terms of fighting for the treasure, the most troublesome one is definitely Pop. Fortunately, I still have an advantage in the beginning. Please give me a 6. When Han Dong picked up the lucky dice on the table, a system notification popped up. It is prohibited to interfere with the dice through direct or indirect means. Once discovered, the luck effect provided by the dice will be erased. At the same time, 3 points of misfortune will be added to the individual. Misfortune is the opposite of luck. The individual will fall into a disadvantageous situation when carrying out the event. Han Dong naturally wouldn't mess around. He casually picked up the dice and threw it lightly. The dice that came into contact with the table rolled violently due to an abnormal repulsion force. The final number made Han Dong reveal a troubled expression. 2. Sigh. At least it's slightly better than 1. Luck plus 2. Conditions of influence have been loaded into the fate system. Matching world, please wait. Compared to before, Han Dong had to wait for a long time this time. He estimated that it would take a few hours before the system responded. Special World EX 03 Day of the Ladybug has been matched. Due to irresistible factors and variability during the evolution and evolution of the original world, the world was unable to develop along the path set by the Black Tower. In the end, it became an unstable and chaotic special world. Special worlds are of great research value to the Black Tower. Therefore, special methods are used to monitor them. Occasionally, employees will be sent to intervene in some uncontrollable areas of the world. The level system of the EX-03 world is completely chaotic. When an individual enters, their level and abilities will be suppressed or directly sealed. Their initial state will be similar to that of a normal person. Friendly staff reminder: please do not rely too much on your own abilities in a special world. Finding and using the rules of the world is the key to survival. Nonlinear core storyline 10381 side storyline treasure storyline have been loaded. Assigning individual identity world limiter has been activated. Special world chaotic system. For a moment, a strong restriction was applied to his body. Han Dong's level and many of his abilities were restricted by the rules, so were even completely sealed. This kind of restriction that was comparable to an emperor's was simply impossible to resist. This feeling was even more troublesome than when he went to the Corpse Kingdom. At least at that time, he still retained the important characteristics of the head. This, at least leave me some basic abilities. If I am suppressed back to the initial state of Nicholas's body, this game is simply unplayable. Han Dong's complaints were completely ignored. No matter how much he struggled, it would be of no use. His vision turned black, and his consciousness dissipated. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of the ECG monitor was first transmitted to Han Dong's ears. His eyes slowly opened in a daze. Reflected in his eyes was a clean, private ward. A needle inserted into the back of his hand was connected to a bottle of saline. Han Dong continued to pretend to be asleep and hurriedly checked his body's condition. After a round of inspection, Han Dong let out a sigh of relief. Although his own level was strongly restricted, almost pushing Han Dong back to the state of a normal person and an apprentice knight, some characteristics were preserved. The black vortex torso and 2 external arms were preserved. However, the related abilities also corresponded to the state of his level after being suppressed. As for the effect of the faceless head, it was basically banned. Only a few soft tentacles could be slightly split out. At least he is not a weak young man. Compared to an ordinary person, he is more powerful. At the same time, Han Dong also found out the reason for his hospitalization. Skull shattered, body shot in many places, leading to liver and kidney damage, and also leading to massive bleeding. But after a successful organ transplant operation, his condition stabilized. It seemed that he had been lying in the hospital for half a year. Today was the day he was about to be discharged. This is the opening character with luck value +2. Isn't it too miserable? Chapter 1491. Since his level was compressed to the level of an ordinary person, even Han Dong, who had the black vortex torso, needed time to adapt to the sudden feeling of weakness. Therefore, Han Dong pretended to be asleep and continued to lie in bed to avoid triggering a dangerous plot when he woke up or walked out of the ward. While adapting, Han Dong also carefully observed the private ward he was in. 1. The room was equipped with a glass window facing the sun, which was currently completely covered by a sunshade. The strange thing was that there was an unusual sense of silence. There were no sirens or noises coming from outside the window. 2. There was a TV on the wall facing the bed. The red dot on the bottom right corner indicated that the power was on. Considering that turning on the TV might trigger a plot, Han Dong did not do so for the time being. 3. There were bedside tables on both sides of the bed. There was a pot of devil's ivy on the bedside table on the left. A ladybug could be seen crawling on the surface of the green leaves. Han Dong silently noted this point. After all, the name of this special world was the Day of the Ladybug. Of course, perhaps the word ladybug had a deeper meaning. There was a plate of fresh fruit on the bedside table on the right. There was also a newspaper that was a few months old under it. The headline on the front page immediately attracted Han Dong's attention. Murderer goes missing again. Citizens question the police's ability to solve the case. Bynum Street Club was massacred, including the local gang, Bird's Nest, and some civilians, a total of 73 people. The suspect mysteriously went missing with serious injuries. The police have yet to make any progress. The first thing that came to Han Dong's mind after reading the article was himself. Moreover, the date of the newspaper matched the time of his hospitalization. The strange thing was, if the suspect was really himself, there should be a pair of handcuffs that locked his free arm to the bed. At the same time, the ward would be strictly monitored. But Han Dong did not see any detectives or cameras. Such a comfortable and quiet ward was not at all like the treatment a suspect should receive. I'm more likely to be the survivor of this massacre. Based on the information in the ward, that was all he could deduce. The other problem was his teammates. The team should have been separated at the beginning of the incident. If everyone was staying in this hospital, according to Green's personality, he should have heard the commotion. But nothing happened now. Let's slowly investigate the situation in the hospital. This is an extremely difficult fate event, and the opening is the most important. After adapting to his body's condition, Han Dong was ready to move. Instead of pressing the bedside bell, he pulled out the infusion needle by himself. If there was a problem with the entire hospital, touching the bedside bell was equivalent to committing suicide. I can't use the Raven costume either. Han Dong, who was wearing a hospital gown, tried to touch the back of his right hand many times, but to no avail. He found a set of clean clothes in the closet, a leather jacket, jeans, sneakers, and a baseball cap. None of the relevant identification documents or wallets were found. He tried to turn on the television, but there was no signal. When he opened the curtains, the scene in front of him stunned Han Dong. He felt as if he had returned to his previous world. By rough estimation, Han Dong's ward should be on the 13th floor. Outside the window corresponded to the bustling city. From the pedestrians, vehicles, and various high-rise buildings, it could be inferred that Day of the Ladybug corresponded to the human world of the 21st century. However, there was one thing that was quite strange. When Han Dong opened the window, the whole ward was still silent. The sound of sirens and clamor that he should have heard were completely absent. It even made Han Dong wonder if he was playing the role of a deaf person, until he clapped his hands, and the clear sound of clapping entered his ears. This situation where I can't hear anything from the outside world, does it mean that the hospital itself is in a state of isolation? What if I climb out of here? With my physical fitness, climbing this kind of building is more than enough. Since there was no notification saying that he was not allowed to do so, Han Dong directly jumped out of the window. The muscles on his right arm swelled, and the veins wriggled under his skin like worms. Although his level was suppressed back to that of a normal person, his body's related characteristics were still retained. His right arm still had a small portion of the ghoul's modified characteristics after fusing with the G-virus. If he had to describe his strength, Han Dong could probably do 81 arm pull-ups. His left arm retained a weak yellow sand system, which could not be used to release magic, and the characteristics related to death did not exist. The only thing that could be done was contact desertification. Han Dong could slowly turn material into sand by attaching his palm to it. Depending on the strength of the material, the speed of desertification would also be affected. With the above two characteristics, Han Dong could easily achieve climbing. In areas where there was no fulcrum to climb, his left hand could easily create a sand pit, and the strength provided by his right hand could easily support his body to move up and down. In this way, Han Dong slowly climbed down. Something strange happened. Each floor corresponded to the same private ward, which was a very normal thing for a hospital. However, the wards that Han Dong observed through the window were too similar, almost exactly the same. It was not just the layout of the rooms. Even the fruits, newspapers, and green plants on the bedside table were exactly the same. After climbing 8 floors in a row, he could not find any differences in each ward. At this moment, Han Dong turned his vision from the ward to the bottom. The scene in front of his eyes shocked Han Dong, and he almost slipped and fell. What is this situation? I have climbed down a full 8 floors, but the height from the ground has not changed at all. It is still about 10 floors high. Han Dong did not dare to let go of his hand and jump down. With his current physique, he would be smashed to pieces. He decisively gave up the idea of climbing out of the hospital. Even though every ward was the same, Han Dong still followed the same path back to his own floor and returned to his own ward. Huff, huff, sweat. Water continuously dripped down from his forehead. Physical fitness is also a problem. I need to slowly adapt. By the way, this fate system is really not giving me face. Can it directly prohibit me from climbing out of the window? Why did it have to do this? Perhaps, if I want to leave the hospital, I can only go through the normal channels. After a short rest, he waited for his physical strength to recover. Just as Han Dong carefully opened the door of the ward, a blonde nurse happened to be standing at the door of the ward, looking slightly flustered. "Mr. Nicholas, why did you get out of bed by yourself? But it is good that you can move freely. We have just received a notice that a very dangerous murderer has escaped into the hospital and is hiding in a corner. The police are on their way. Please stay in the ward. It is best to lock the door. When the danger has been completely eliminated, we will inform you again." After saying that, the blonde nurse hurriedly went to inform the next patient. Murderer? Hiding in the hospital. With a puzzled face, Han Dong waited until the nurse was not paying attention to him and quietly slipped out. Chapter 1492. From the beginning until now. Han Dong did not receive any relevant instructions. Unlike the previous Fate events, there would be a hint of the main storyline at the beginning or a more obvious direction. As the individual continues to grow in the Fate space, the systematic guidance will slowly decrease. The more robust early game guidance is to make it easier for the newbie to adapt to the unknown environment and reduce the risk of death due to accidents. For individuals like me who have reached the level of gate unlocking, the basic guidance is no longer necessary. The essence of Unknown Fate lies in the development of completely unknown events and highly liberalized world scenes. The main storyline needs to be found and driven by oneself. There are 2 important pieces of information at the moment. 1. I am confined to the hospital and need to complete something before I can leave. 2. The hospital is hiding a murderer that the police are pursuing. Perhaps the murderer and leaving the hospital are related. What if I hide in the ward and wait for the police to conduct a comprehensive search of the hospital until the murderer is found? However, it is better to take action. It is also necessary to collect information about the hospital in advance. After all, I cannot rule out whether the murderer or the hospital is the problem. Even if I encounter the murderer, as long as he is not armed, he will not be much of a threat to me. Even if he is armed, considering his current situation, it is impossible for him to shoot at me immediately. As long as the murderer is an ordinary person, my chances of winning are still quite high. While Han Dong was thinking, the fingernails on his right arm were slowly growing. The maximum length was 30 centimeters, and the hardness was enough to cut through flesh. Due to the murderer, most of the wards were closed. When Han Dong happened to pass by a group ward with the door open, he noticed that a patient suddenly had a seizure. The doctor and nurse were quickly treating him. In less than a minute, the doctor and nurse hurriedly left the ward. It seems that the murderer is only hiding in the hospital and has not caused too much of a commotion. Let's go to the lobby on the first floor and see if we can leave the hospital first. Not knowing why, Han Dong was not afraid of the murderer, but there was an indescribable feeling in the hospital that urged him to leave this place. At the beginning of the game, Han Dong tried to leave through the window because of the faint strangeness brought by the hospital. Currently, there were 2 options to go to the lobby on the first floor. 1. Elevator. 2. Safety passage, stairs. Recalling the scene of the elevator murder in the horror movie, Han Dong decisively walked towards the end of the corridor, towards the staircase with the safe passage lit up. After all, There were too many uncertainties in the elevator. With Han Dong's current physical fitness, it would be very difficult for him to escape from danger in the elevator if he encountered any abnormalities. However, just as Han Dong arrived at the end of the corridor, creak, the door to the stairwell that was connected to the safety passageway was closed. It seemed like someone had just left. Just as Han Dong was about to chase after him, clang! A noise came from the washroom, female, next to him. Whoosh! 5 plague-infected claws grew out of his right hand. Han Dong, who had entered a state of battle readiness, leaned against the cold brick wall and quietly slipped into the bathroom. However, the scene in the bathroom made Han Dong quickly retract his claws. Before his eyes, the female patient whose neck was half slit was lying inside the cubicle. The sound earlier was the sound of the female patient's body crashing into the cubicle when she fell. Because the woman's tonnage was relatively large, about 200 kilograms, the wooden door of the cubicle and the toilet pump were broken together. Blood and sewage mixed together, the smell was more extreme. Judging from the female patient's wound and the blood on the ground, she was basically hopeless. This made Han Dong immediately remember that someone seemed to have left this safe passage. Han Dong did not quickly chase out, but stuck to the bathroom door to observe for a while. After confirming that no one else was close, he quickly slipped into the corridor to avoid being seen and suspected of being the murderer. Creak! Han Dong had just stepped into the safety passageway when he immediately heard a cry for help from the lower end. The cry for help was only for a moment. It seemed that the throat had been cut. The sound source was only 2 floors away. With a spurt of energy, Han Dong chased after him as fast as he could. However, the other party also heard noise, fleeing down at a faster speed, even with a similar parkour movement, with the support of the railing, quickly flipping down. Because the murderer was relatively panicked, the victim's neck was completely cut off, the head was rolling in the stairwell, blood was constantly gushing out from the neck. However, Han Dong not only did not stop, but also did not even have any change in his expression. He stared at the black shadow, fleeing down the stairs, estimating the speed of the other party. If this continues, I will definitely not be able to catch up. I can only use special means. The stairs were a kind of patio structure for hollow rings. Han Dong gritted his teeth. The muscles of his right arm quickly expanded to 5 times their original size. The worm-like meridians on the surface of the muscles moved. He stepped over the railing of the stairs and fell vertically along the patio. Free fall was obviously the fastest way to go down the stairs. After falling for about 10 meters, he just caught up with the murderer after crossing the height of 4 floors. His right arm with bulging muscles grabbed the railing. Creak! The sound of metal being compressed. At the same time, when he stopped falling, the metal railing was also compressed and deformed, leaving only a palm indentation. The fleeing murderer was also shocked by such an exaggerated scene, which gave Han Dong an opportunity. Before the murderer could swing the sharp knife in his hand, he jumped over the railing and landed a flying kick on the murderer's chest. Bam! The murderer's chest suffered a heavy blow, and his retreating body crashed heavily into the wall, his hood slipping off. A dirty and decadent middle-aged man's face was revealed. Just when Han Dong wanted to make another move and incapacitate the murderer, a murderous glint flashed across his eyes. There was a flash of murderous intent in the criminal's eyes. Han Dong also noticed this detail and stopped immediately. Swish! He swung the knife, and blood splattered. Han Dong stared at the 3 centimeters cut on his chest, somewhat surprised. The knife just now was extremely dangerous. If he had not stopped in time, his chest might have been cut open. This guy is not an ordinary person. I can't hold back. He took advantage of the murderer's mistake in swinging the knife. He punched the murderer's head with his sandbag-sized fist. Bam! Since the murderer's back was against the wall, the impact of the punch forced his head to jerk back, and the back of his head hit the wall heavily. His body went limp. A smear of pink blood with the smell of blood flowed out from the back of the murderer's head. At the same time, the long-awaited system prompt came. You have defeated the potential murderer The danger in the current area has been removed. Huh, that's it? Han Dong did not expect that this would be the beginning of the fate event. He thought that the extremely difficult unknown fate would have a completely fatal difficulty. Although this criminal had some skills, he wasn't really dangerous. Not long after, the police who heard the commotion came to the crime scene and gave Han Dong a thumbs up. However, according to the procedure, Han Dong still needed to go to the police station to make a statement. Just like that, Han Dong, surrounded by a group of police officers, successfully arrived at the hospital's lobby on the first floor. Staring at the many police cars in the street outside, Han Dong took a deep breath. At least he could leave this hospital that made him feel uncomfortable. Just as he was about to walk out of the hospital lobby, Han Dong noticed something strange. The lobby's main entrance corresponded to the hospital's exit, but the sign at the top was entrance. Just as Han Dong followed the police officers out of the hospital's main entrance, his vision suddenly went black. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of the monitor entered his eardrums. Han Dong, who woke up, was lying in a familiar ward. If there was anything different about the layout, there was only one very small difference. On the potted plant placed on the bedside table, there were 2 ladybugs crawling. There was one more ladybug compared to when Han Dong first woke up. Chapter 1493. Could this be related to the exit of the hospital? Just now, it was obviously the exit of the hospital, but it was labeled as entrance. However, this should be the difficulty. If it was so easy to complete the opening event, it would make me worry. Thinking about it carefully, the murderer should be related to me leaving the hospital. After all, when I killed him, the system also sent a related prompt that the crisis was resolved. The problem that still needs to be solved should be finding the real exit. Perhaps other than the real exit, there is no other way to leave the hospital. Let's assume for the time being, I could do it again. Han Dong was the same as the first time. He pulled out the needle on the back of his hand and changed into casual clothes from the closet. This time, he didn't waste time climbing out of the window and immediately left the ward. Click, the door lock turned. When Han Dong was about to leave, the familiar scene played out again. The blonde nurse just came to the door and was about to inform Han Dong about the murderer who escaped into the hospital. This time, I obviously left the ward faster than the first time and skipped the process of climbing out of the window, but I still bumped into the nurse. If everything that happened here is a game, then the judgment of game start is not that I woke up from the hospital bed, but that I left the ward. At this moment, Han Dong's thoughts were temporarily interrupted. He smelled something wrong. The nurse and Han Dong's original memory were obviously different. We've just received a notice that a highly dangerous murderer has escaped into the hospital. When the nurse spoke, her mouth was closed in a rather exaggerated way. Han Dong saw that her mouth was full of yellow teeth and even had black spots. It was a sharp contrast to the white teeth of the first time. What was even more strange was that Han Dong even saw several maggots wriggling between the decayed teeth. Her mouth was also full of blistering ulceration structures. While talking, the blonde nurse rubbed the corner of her eyes because her eyes were itchy. But unexpectedly, a fly drilled out from the corner of her eyes. After the conversation, the blonde nurse went to the next ward. When she left, her right hand hidden behind her back was actually holding a strange syringe. It was filled with an unknown green solvent. During the conversation just now, there was a tendency to inject Han Dong. What is this? Han Dong still chose to leave the ward. At the same time, if he headed to the end of the corridor at a faster speed, he might be able to stop the murderer before he left the ladies' room. Things would become easier then. During this period, Han Dong once again passed by the open door of the collective ward. Han Dong glanced at the abnormal commotion coming from inside. What he saw made Han Dong stop in his tracks. The bizarre scene made his scalp go numb. Just like last time, the attending doctor and several nurses were surrounding the patient, but their behavior was completely different. The frantically struggling patients were chained to the bed. The nurses even had electric drills to drill iron nails into the patient's palms and feet, fixing them on the bed in the shape of the Chinese character. The doctor took out a sharp handsaw and prepared to perform a special treatment on the patient. In addition, the other patients in the same ward were watching all of this intently. Some of them were even clapping their hands out of excitement. As if feeling the gaze, the doctor who was cutting the rib suddenly turned his head to look at the door. Fortunately, Han Dong had already left and was not discovered by the attending doctor. Immediately, the nurse with the electric drill and covered in blood closed the door of the collective ward. Has the difficulty increased? With doubts, Han Dong changed his walk to. He rushed to the toilet at the end of the corridor. However, the time still did not match. The murder was complete. The obese female patient was already lying in a pool of blood, just as Han Dong was about to turn around and leave. "Help me!" The weak cry for help forced Han Dong to look at the obese female patient who weighed 200 kilograms. If this was in real life, Han Dong would definitely help. But this was a fate event. There was no need to waste time on this kind of thing. Moreover, according to the current situation, the entire hospital was problematic, including the victim in front of him. Suddenly, the obese female patient's body began to wriggle. Bang! Her abdomen exploded. White worms with the round mouth part of a lamprey gushed out and headed towards Han Dong. At the same time, as a large number of worms left the abdominal cavity, the dying female patient showed a relieved and comfortable expression. It was as if she had achieved her purpose of going to the toilet. Naturally, Han Dong took to his heels. His main target was still the murderer. Boom! He broke through the wooden door of the safe passage and stepped into the stairwell. With the experience of the first chase, Han Dong directly jumped over the guardrail and fell down from the atrium. At this time, the murderer had just killed the poor nurse in the stairwell. It was the same trick. Han Dong jumped over the guardrail, and before the murderer could react, he threw a side kick to the chest. However, this kick actually caused Han Dong to step back and his body hit the guardrail. The murderer who was kicked in the chest only staggered 2 steps back and patted the dust on his chest. His physical fitness has improved? While Han Dong was surprised, a beam of knife light flashed. Relying on the instinct cultivated by many battles, Han Dong immediately dodged to the side. Zung! The butcher's knife directly cut the iron guardrail. The strength of the knife was obviously beyond the scope of a normal human. The eyes under the hood were filled with a kind of inhuman ferocity. Without the slightest pause, the murderer raised the butcher's knife and continued to swing at Han Dong. Whether it was the strength, speed, or technique, there was an obvious improvement. Ding, ding, ding. When the sharp claws on Han Dong's right arm collided with the butcher's knife, there were even sparks splashing out. After many exchanges, Han Dong was forced to step back again and step down the stairs. The nails that were hit by the knife were also showing signs of cracking. At the critical moment, an unexpected situation happened. The nurse who had just been beheaded by the murderer actually stood up, searching for the breath. He hugged the murderer from behind. Good chance. Han Dong showed no mercy and pierced the murderer's heart with his claws. Taking into account the inhuman physical characteristics, Han Dong also used a more ruthless move, left hand into the eyes. While piercing the eyes, his fingers touched the brain inside. Desertification. The criminal's body convulsed for a while, and then he fell to his knees. Rustle, 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 yellow sand continuously flowed out from his withered eyes. Thank you. The nurse's head rolled down the stairs, and after saying thank you, died with the body. Because the battle was obviously longer than the last time, before Han Dong left in advance, the police had already found him. After some words of praise, they directly pressed the pistol against Han Dong's waist and abdomen and forced him back to the police station to make a statement. When they came to the hospital's lobby on the first floor, bang! The pistol pressed against Han Dong's waist and abdomen actually fired. The bullet went through the abdomen, causing a kidney to be broken. Blood flowed, and Han Dong screamed in pain. The honest police could only apologize. Sorry, it went off. I hope you can be honest, otherwise it may go off again. The gunshot did not attract anyone's attention at all. Han Dong, who was seriously injured, was pushed out of the hospital gate. Everything went black. Beep, 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 he woke up again. There was one more ladybug in the ward. Chapter 1494. Known information. 1. Opening the door of the ward is equivalent to the beginning of the game. No matter when you open the door, you will inevitably encounter the blonde nurse. 2. Every time you reopen, the number of ladybugs will increase by 1. Although it is not completely certain, it can only be hypothesized that the increase in the number of ladybugs will change the entire hospital and the murderer hiding in the hospital. From the second situation, the people in the hospital may also have a certain tendency to attack, but they may also help him deal with the murderer. 3. If you leave from a main door with the entrance, everything will be restarted, the number of ladybugs will increase by 1, and all the previous physical injuries will be healed. 4. Killing the murderer is the only action that can trigger the system prompt, and it is more likely to be the clearance condition. If you can't kill the murderer, even if you find the exit, you may not be able to leave. Han Dong sat on a hospital bed, sorting out the information and making reasonable inferences based on his own destiny experience. One hand was also gently stroking his abdomen. The previous bullet wound had been completely healed, and at the same time, he stared at the 3 ladybugs crawling on the surface of the green plant. If the number of ladybugs corresponds to the difficulty of the incident, then the hospital I will face this time will be worse, and the murderer will be stronger. Moreover, the police are also a problem. Once I come into contact with them, I will be forcibly taken out of the hospital by the police and start a more difficult hospital cycle. So there are 2 difficulties I'm currently facing. 1. Quickly kill the murderer, or lead the murderer to a hidden corner to kill, avoiding contact with the police. 2. Find a real exit hidden in the hospital. As long as the first point is achieved, I will have enough time to find the location of the exit in the hospital. I will follow the previous route. At least I can find the murderer's location. Han Dong did not choose to directly change the casual clothes in the wardrobe this time. He went directly to the door in a hospital gown. Creak, the moment he opened the door of the ward. Sure enough, the familiar yet strange blonde nurse was standing at the door. It seemed that she did not come by chance at all, but stood at the door the whole time, waiting for Han Dong to open the door. The scene in front of him made Han Dong, who had seen all kinds of big scenes, frown slightly. The nurse, whose lips were completely sutured, showed a twisted smile as much as possible. Due to the need to warn Han Dong that there was a murderer hiding in the hospital, the nurse tried her best to open and close her mouth. The thin thread sewn between her lips tore her skin and flesh apart. Through the lines of the sutured lips, he could clearly see that the nurse's mouth was filled with shiny white larvae. As she spoke, the larvae kept coming out of the nurse's mouth. The 2 eyeballs were also replaced by dense insect eggs. The skin that was exposed to the outside was bulging with small transparent bags in the form of insect eggs. Due to the scratching, larvae kept bursting out. When the danger has been completely eliminated, we will inform you again. After saying this, the nurse who was supposed to leave continued to stand at the door with a smile on her face. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a syringe filled with a green liquid suddenly shot out. Fortunately, Han Dong was prepared. After all, anyone would be 100% alert when facing a nurse with such an image. While dodging, Han Dong grabbed the door frame and slammed the door shut. Since the 2 of them were talking at the door, the nurse's stab caused her entire arm to reach in. Crack! Han Dong's forceful closing of the door directly broke the nurse's arm. In other words, the nurse's body was very fragile, and the insides were full of insect eggs. When the broken arm fell to the ground, it scattered large and small insect eggs. Before they hatched, Han Dong immediately leaned over and made an intimate gesture with the arm. Russell, the arm, and the insect eggs on the ground all turned into yellow sand. Han Dong took a deep breath and was ready to open the door to kill the nurse. Crack! When he opened the door again, there was nothing outside. He stuck his head out and saw the nurse with a broken arm standing at the door of the next ward, informing him about the murderer. She seemed to feel Han Dong's gaze and turned her head with a kind smile. She didn't care that Han Dong had broken her arm. Seeing this scene, Han Dong was also completely sure of the meaning of the number of ladybugs. It's not so much the difficulty, but the degree of chaos. With the increase of ladybugs, the hospital will gradually become uncontrollable. If we are trapped here, we will definitely die. Thinking of this, Han Dong couldn't help but worry about the situation of his teammates, especially Green, who liked to mess around. I have to leave this hospital quickly and find the opening area where Green is. Otherwise, according to his personality, he may make the difficulty infinitely increase. If Green dies, it will be a great loss to the whole world. No longer pretending, Han Dong, in a hospital gown, ran to the end of the corridor as fast as he could. Even if he couldn't catch the murderer in the bathroom, he had to find him in the stairwell one step ahead. However, just as Han Dong was about to pass by the group ward that was not closed, snap! A mass of brain tissue flew out. For the sake of safety, Han Dong slowed down to avoid a handsaw or machete from the inside and cut him in half on the spot. When he slowly approached the group ward, the scene inside made Han Dong's heart tremble. The doctors and nurses who sewed the animal's head together were performing a treatment called eating. The patients on the other beds also took off their clothes and marked their bodies with markers, hoping that they would be the next to be eaten. However, the eating here was not really eating the patient. Instead, it was the most primitive way to remove the diseased tissue in the patient's body. The patient, who had half of his head and many organ tissues gnawed away, showed a quite comfortable expression. The doctor wearing a horse head also seemed to notice Han Dong's peeping. He immediately turned his head to look at Han Dong outside the door. His blood-stained finger stood in front of him and made a quiet gesture. Han Dong nodded slightly and left quietly with a very well-behaved look. It's good that he didn't trouble me. Hurry to the stairwell to find the murderer. The end of the corridor was not far away. With the previous two experiences, he no longer went to the bathroom to check the situation. However, Han Dong had not completely reached the end. A strange sound came from the bathroom, as if some kind of giant was squirming. This is an extremely fat patient that could even fill the corridor came out of the women's bathroom in pain. Similar to the previous two situations, half of her head was cut off. What flowed out of the wound was not blood, but a large amount of fat mixed with some blood. In a short time, it soaked the corridor and covered the soles of Han Dong's shoes. Han Dong naturally did not dare to stay for long and immediately accelerated to the stairwell. Boom! He kicked open the wooden door that led to the stairwell and looked down at the bottom of the stairs. Through the patio structure of the stairs, he spied the murder scene. A murderer with 4 muscular arms had just cut off the poor caregiver's head. Hearing the movement of the door, the murderer immediately raised his head and looked directly at Han Dong upstairs with a murderous gaze. Considering that the police were searching for him, he did not take the initiative to attack Han Dong. Instead, he quickly climbed down like a spider. The stare just now made Han Dong's scalp tingle. Instinct told him that he was afraid that it would be difficult for him to win against the murderer in a one-on-one manner. Han Dong gave up the previous two, jumping off the building to pursue the murderer. Instead, he secretly followed behind the murderer and waited for the right scene and opportunity. Chapter 1495. Han Dong chased down the stairs. Just as he passed by the beheaded caregiver, the headless corpse suddenly reached out and blocked Han Dong's path. At the same time, the head at the bottom spoke. Are you going to kill this murderer? Yes. Considering that this guy provided crucial help in the last reincarnation, Han Dong also gave a reply. Please bring me along. I should be able to help. Ow! Han Dong didn't have much time. The murderer was using 4 hands and 2 legs to escape quickly. If he wasn't careful, he would lose him. You only need to bring my head and my arm. My head can help you see more details. My arm can help you deal with him. Finished. The caregiver's headless corpse suddenly mutated. The muscles at the top of the right arm showed a pulling state and automatically broke off. The right arm that was separated from the body had a pure bone area of about 15 centimeters long, like a sword hilt that could be held. When Han Dong went forward to grab the bone at the end of the arm, a notification sounded. Destiny equipment. Lester caregiver's right arm. World limited type. Blunt weapon quality. Excellent special effect. Compatibility. Lester's right arm can adapt to the user's attributes and display the same effect. Once this effect is activated, the arm will fuse with the user's abilities. The quality of the weapon may increase. Nerve reflex. This equipment will be connected to the user's nerves, increasing attack speed. Comment. Lester is mainly responsible for overweight patients in the hospital. He can use his right arm to support patients weighing up to 300 kilograms and has been voted as the best caregiver of the year for 3 consecutive years. Destiny equipment. Han Dong didn't expect that he would be able to obtain his first Destiny equipment in the opening storyline, and it was even a high-quality living equipment. After all, in this situation where he was absolutely suppressed and all his equipment were sealed, a usable Destiny equipment was very important in the opening phase. Han Dong grabbed the end of the arm. Creak, 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 nerve threads that drilled out from the bone connected with Han Dong's palm, becoming one. At the same time, the ghoul's and G-virus-related characteristics were also fused, making the arm weapon look more lethal. Good stuff. After Han Dong praised him, he also picked up the caregiver's head. However, there was no notification for the head because the head was the caregiver's body and not a tool. Since the entire hospital was so strange, Han Dong did not care about how he dressed up. Whoosh! He reached out and pulled out a flexible blood vessel from the nurse's neck, tied it to his waist, and moved together. Regarding this, the caregiver had no complaints. In fact, the feeling of being pulled on his neck made him feel extremely good. That was it. Han Dong, who had a blunt arm behind his back and a head hanging from his waist, completed the first set of equipment for this incident. Owing to the delay, the murderer had descended 7 stories. Han Dong couldn't care less. He jumped over the railing of the stairs again and descended from the atrium. 13th floor, 5th floor. When he fell to the same floor as the murderer, Han Dong used the same method to grab onto the railing. Because the falling distance was higher than the previous few times, Han Dong almost lost his grip and fell to the ground floor. That was close. When Han Dong jumped over the railing, the murderer had already gone to the 5th floor of the hospital through the exit of the corridor. At the same time, there was a sound of footsteps downstairs. It was most likely the police searching for the murderer. What the F***CK? He glanced down curiously. The police in his field of vision were completely different from the previous 2 times. They were all wearing gas masks and armed with automatic rifles. This was a team of special police. Due to the previous gun misfire, once exposed, the other party was very likely to shoot directly. Not to mention, Han Dong still had a head hanging from his waist. Han Dong immediately turned around and followed the murderer's trail to the 5th floor of the hospital. Due to the high possibility of hiding the murderer in the lower floor, the doors here were basically all closed. When Han Dong caught up to the corridor, he saw the murderer crawling into the operating room at the end of the corridor like a spider. Well, good place. The operating room sound insulation is excellent. It's the best place to get rid of this guy. But I still have to speed up. When I fell in the stairwell, there was my compressed handprint on the metal railing. The special police will definitely notice this clue and conduct a careful search of the 5th floor. Thinking of this, Han Dong chased after the murderer as fast as he could. When he pushed open the door at the end of the corridor with the operating lights on, he had to pass through a long buffer room to reach the deepest part of the operating area. But this long buffer room exuded a pungent smell, and the lights flickered slightly. Han Dong's intuition told him that the murderer must be in the operating area. "Mr. Lester, please help me pay attention to the situation behind me. Leave it to me." The caregiver's head, hanging from his waist, made a very reassuring expression. He quickly passed through the buffer corridor and pushed open the door of the operating room. The scene in front of him would make the average person vomit everything in their stomach. There was no need to describe the details. It was probably the scene of the murderer breaking into the area where special operations were being carried out and brutally executing the doctor and the patient. The murderer who had hidden the pleasure of the execution was lying on the ceiling. The black cloak that covered his body was stained with blood and had been taken off. This was a middle-aged man with anatomical markings all over his body. 2 extra arms grew out of his shoulder blades and seemed to have an absorption structure. These 2 arms could easily fix him to the ceiling. The 2 arms that belonged to his original body were holding a butcher's knife made of human bones. From the tragic situation at the scene, especially some of the metal instruments that were cut open, it was enough to see the sharpness of the butcher's knife. However, Han Dong was not afraid at all. The corner of his mouth was even filled with a kind of crazy smile. "Mr. Lester, let's go. Remember to watch my back and report to me at any time." Due to the seal of the magic eye, Han Dong's vision could not cover all areas. He could only rely on the caregiver to fill in the gaps. "Let's go. I want to let him have a taste of being beheaded." Before Han Dong could make the first move, the murderer, who was completely in a state of killing, had locked onto the intruder in front of him. At the same time, he also noticed the caregiver, who was not completely killed before. This was absolutely unacceptable for his obsession to kill. A strange hissing sound was heard. With a burst of strength in his legs, he suddenly rushed towards Han Dong at the door. The butcher's knife in his hands was already in a cross/slash posture, determined to cut the youth in front of him into 4 pieces. Phew! Han Dong took a deep breath, as if he had returned to his previous state of battle. When it came to killing enemies, the murderer should have called Han Dong teacher. Even if the faceless skull's ability was sealed, Han Dong's brain was still an ultra-sophisticated computer. He calculated the time and distance of the attack. Just as the opponent was about to reach the attack range of the butcher's knife, Han Dong took a step back and took out the Destiny equipment on his back. Caregiver Lester's right arm, a blow to the head. Duong. This sound was a good sign. Chapter 1496. Han Dong, who had entered the zone, took advantage of the maximum distance of the opponent's attack to retreat and counterattack. The whole process was so smooth that it looked like a flash. Lester, who was hanging on his waist, was dumbfounded by the scene. He did not expect the patient who happened to pass by the stairwell to be so strong. Lester's right arm had gained the characteristics of Ghoul's arm due to the compatibility effect. At the same time, it was also genetically stimulated by the G-virus. It looked like a huge, irregularly swollen meat hammer. When it hit the ground, the crisp sound of the skull cracking could be heard. Han Dong's full-powered attack created a small crater on the floor of the operating room. The criminal's head was completely buried in the crater. Wisps of light pink brain matter oozed out from between the bone layers. A perfect counterattack like this could often cause 200% damage. Just when Han Dong thought the battle was over, swoosh. The criminal, who was pressed to the ground, flipped his arm in the opposite direction and forcefully swung the butcher's knife upward. Waves of light flashed by. Lester's right arm had more than 10 cuts of various sizes. However, as the weapon itself had reached excellent quality, the internal bones were extremely hard. The butcher's knife could not cut through the bones. Fortunately, Han Dong had this weapon. If he had used his own arm to suppress the criminal, there was a high risk that his arm would be broken. It's a good thing that he's not dead. "Mr. Lester, please help me suppress this guy. Before I kill him, I want to ask him some questions." After that, Han Dong took the head from his waist. He directly inserted the neck into the end of the arm bone. Lester, the main body, personally controlled his arm to continue suppressing the criminal. Since the butcher's knife was just slashing randomly, Han Dong found the right time to reach out his left hand and touch the joint. Desertification. After a while, as the yellow sand slowly dispersed, the criminal's limbs were all erased. For safety's sake, Han Dong also poked his left index finger into the criminal's ear. As long as he sensed any danger, he would perform desertification in the skull and kill him immediately. "Can you still talk?" Han Dong observed that only the criminal's skull was broken. The brain inside was still intact. "Hurry up and kill me." With his limbs crippled, the murderer, who could no longer enjoy killing, seemed to have lost all meaning in life. His ferocious eyes turned into endless begging, hoping that Han Dong could kill him quickly. I need a piece of information. If you can give it to me, I will fulfill your wish. Excuse me, where is the exit of this hospital? When he heard this question, the murderer revealed a perverted smile. Sure enough, you're also a pitiful fellow trapped in here? No wonder he was so powerful. Exit targeted different trapped people and existed in different locations. The conditions to leave were also different. My condition is to kill 40% of the pigs in the hospital, then we can leave through the ventilation ducts. As for you, the condition should be to find and kill me. As for where the exit is, you need to find it yourself. Hurry up, kill me. This is all the information I know. All right, about 2 minutes passed. The fully armed SWAT team arrived at the operating theater. In front of them was a work of art. The murderer and the staff in the operating theater were stitched together in an extremely strange way. With the murderer as the main body, they were stitched together into a bright red butterfly that had broken out of its cocoon. At the same time, the murderer's handwriting left 4 large words in the operating theater: I have ascended. Through the investigation of the scene, the SWAT team determined that the murderer was a murderer. Under the circumstances that he could not escape, he realized a morbid work of art before his death. When the police officers dealt with the murderer's body, Han Dong had already changed into a doctor's white coat and left the operating theater through the exclusive passage for the medical staff. He took the elevator back to the 13th floor and returned to his ward. Click! He locked the door and changed the casual clothes in the wardrobe. At the same time, he washed the bloodstains on his body and the Lester nurse's arm and head by the sink. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. I know some hidden back doors in the hospital. Perhaps one of them corresponds to the exit you're looking for. Since Han Dong had helped him take revenge, the Lester nurse wanted to repay him. Can you tell me the location of these back doors first? We have to plan the best route. After all, it's quite dangerous to wander around the hospital. After that, Han Dong placed a cleaned head by the sink and brought over a stool for the two of them to talk. If we exclude the hospital's main entrance, ventilation ducts, and various windows, there are only 3 exits. There are 3 exits that lead to the outside world. First, the emergency passage on the south side of the first floor. Second, the hospital's underground warehouse also has an exit that connects to the hospital's backyard. Third, because the morgue often mutates, there's a special passage that connects to the road outside the hospital so that it won't affect the hospital's operations. It's convenient to send the bodies to the crematorium. Let's go. Let's go to the morgue first. If it's not right, we'll go to the basement and choose the emergency passage. Perhaps it was because of his fondness for the morgue, or perhaps it was the answer that Han Dong's intuition gave him. All right, let me send you on your last journey. Due to special reasons, I can't leave this hospital. I can only send you to the exit. As for more information about me and the hospital, I'm not allowed to tell anyone. Thank you, Mr. Lester. Han Dong had a rough idea of what was going on. He would be able to figure it out as soon as he left the hospital. He did not ask any more questions. The most important thing now was to leave the hospital. After taking the elevator to the first floor, under the guidance of Lester's caregiver, they followed an extremely eerie passage to the back of the hospital. Before they reached the morgue, they could already hear the howling of zombies. Mr. Nicholas, the morgue's caregiver, is a rather stubborn old man. I'll deal with him later. You don't have to say anything. Okay. As they approached the cold and dark morgue, Han Dong sensed danger and stopped. In front of him, a fat old man was piled up in front of the morgue's door. To be exact, the old man's abdominal cavity had merged with the door. If they wanted to enter the morgue, they had to pass through his abdominal cavity. When he sensed that someone was approaching, the old man slowly opened his eyes and noticed the head hanging on Han Dong's waist. Lester, why are you only left with a head? Didn't a murderer sneak into our hospital? I was unlucky today to run into him, but he's already dead. Hello, Mr. Neal. Do you have any useful corpses here? I need a body right now. In return, I'll give you half of my bonus next month. Who's this person? He's a caregiver who just came to our hospital for an internship. Look at his muscular arms. He'll definitely be my successor in the future. Don't worry, he's very honest. Coincidentally, there was a fresh body yesterday that's suitable for you. Since there's no one here, hurry up and go in. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Every morgue had mutated corpses. Some were banging on the door, some were screaming, and some were rotten arms reaching out from the gap of the door, trying to grab the young man in the corridor. It was a horrifying scene, but Han Dong's expression did not change. For Han Dong, who had lived in the morgue with a female corpse for a long time, this place was nothing. Soon, under the guidance of Lester's caregiver, they arrived at the passage. The word exit at the end explained everything. Looks like we found the right place. Good luck, Mr. Nicholas. I hope you'll survive. If you're seriously injured in the future, you're welcome to stay at our hospital again. My right arm will be your gift. Go now. It might be more dangerous outside, but I know very well that you don't belong here. Thank you. Lester, who only had his head left, landed on the ground. Through the wiggling of his neck tissue, he moved toward the morgue to find a suitable body. Han Dong took a deep breath and walked through the exit. Preliminary test completed. Difficulty, Ladybug, 3. You've reached the required difficulty, and you've ensured that the number of survivors in the hospital is above 80%. Scenario. Anani Hospital scenario has been unlocked. You can use Ladybug points to go to the hospital for quick treatment. Anani Hospital incident, base number, 3. You've obtained Ladybug points. 3 times 3 is equal to 9. Chapter 1497. Initial beta calculation has been completed. Congratulations, you're a gangster killer from Philadelphia. You have officially received the opportunity to continue to live and play. The following will explain the basic rules and the use of Ladybug points. Please listen carefully. Only selected killers can come here and participate in this survival game called Day of the Ladybug. Only good enough killers who are willing to release their nature can survive and win a new life. We solemnly promise you that as long as you can reach the final clearance condition in the game, you can choose to leave and get a new life. You can also stay and play in this city forever. The key to play is the Ladybug points. Ways to obtain points are as follows. 1. Basic way. Every time an individual goes to the game site and reaches the corresponding clearance condition, they can obtain the corresponding points of number of activated ladybugs times scene base. 2. Killing way. In an area where killing is allowed, defeating other killers can obtain 30% of their points and a random piece of equipment. Note, under normal circumstances, killing other players will accumulate killing points. As the value increases, the individual will receive the corresponding negative state. Specific scenes, specific conditions, such as justifiable self-defense, will not increase the killing points. Killing level 1. The points obtained through all channels will be reduced by 30%. Killing level 2. Individual information will be automatically disclosed, including points, equipment, and related ability values. Killing level 3. Individual coordinates will be automatically sent to other killers within a kilometer. When killed, all Ladybug points and equipment will be dropped, and the killer will not accumulate killing points. Killing level 4. The individual will be hunted by the Ladybug killer and will die upon contact. 3. Trading way. The individual can sell items to shops or other killers in exchange for the corresponding Ladybug points. 4. Working way. The individual can go to the unlocked place to apply for a job. After reaching the conditions, they can obtain the corresponding Ladybug points. 5. Additional way. The organizers will regularly hold mysterious activities in the city. Participating in the activities can obtain additional Ladybug points, items, or privileges as rewards. Before the activities are held, there will be a city-wide broadcast announcement. Please decide whether to participate according to your own ability. Ladybug points are as follows. 1. Ladybug points are the key to the game, and we will never support incompetent people. Every other day, all participants' Ladybug points will automatically decrease by 1. When the points reach 0, the individual will be hunted by the ladybug killer. 2. Individuals can go to the ladybug store to spend money, exchange for various types of items, unlock restrictions, and so on. Note: shops with ladybug signs on the streets are all shops. All forms of fighting are prohibited in the shops. Otherwise, points will be deducted or severe punishment will be imposed according to the severity of the situation. The above is the current game content that can be revealed. As for the rest of the rules and content, please explore on your own in the Day of the Ladybug. Unleash your killer talent to the fullest. Han Dong, who left through the corpse transport channel, immediately hid in the dark corner of the street and quietly listened to the explanation of the system. Assassin, as expected, Han Dong remembered the newspaper that was placed on the bedside table when he woke up in the hospital. It was said that a mafia club was massacred and 73 people were involved. The suspect was seriously injured and disappeared. From the looks of it, the suspect in the newspaper was Han Dong's new character in Unknown Fate, a special assassin who had been chosen. A real game against assassins? Everyone is an assassin character. I didn't expect Unknown Fate to be a game-like mode. It suits me quite well. I didn't use the lucky dice in vain. Speaking of games, Han Dong, who had a deep interaction with the clown, Pennywise, was quite good at it. When he understood the basic rules, he also showed a strange smile at the same time. In other words, the ladybug points are all the key to this game. Points seem to be able to remove some of the restrictions on us. I don't know if I can remove the level or ability restrictions. Probably our level should be locked. Otherwise, once I return to my previous level, the game here can't be maintained. If I can unlock some of the sealed abilities, even if the level is suppressed, it's still a good thing. For example, Magic Eye, Camouflage, Brain Prison, or Blood Dog. Once these abilities are unlocked, it will be a lot more convenient for me. However, the most important thing is to find teammates, especially Green. Han Dong thought of this and quickly acted. With the main goal of searching for ladybug stores, he began to move in this unknown city and tried to use points to buy information on his teammates. The city in front of him was completely different from the illusion that Han Dong saw in the hospital. There was no traffic at all on the streets of Malone. It was an empty, dead city. After half an hour of secret movement, Han Dong collected some useful basic information. This dead city was similar to the capital of a superpower. The electricity and water systems were working normally. The food stored in the supermarket was also within the shelf life and could be used at will. All kinds of buildings, parks, and some special areas could be game area. There would always be eye-catching signs in front of areas related to the game, marked with 3 different statuses: in-game, waiting to enter, or temporarily closed. Han Dong also saw some strangely dressed assassins at the bottom of the buildings waiting to enter. He searched for a full 2 hours. Han Dong finally saw a lit ladybug sign in the depths of a factory. Ladybug store? I finally found it. It seems that the distribution of stores is really low, and it's relatively hidden. But it's also right. The store is also set as a safe zone. In order to increase the thrill of the game, there should be fewer safe zones. I have to be careful here. The safe zone is limited to the inside of the store. Some of the assassins should be specifically guarding near the store. After all, individuals who want to go to the store must carry a certain amount of ladybug points. Han Dong first walked around the perimeter of the factory. He found a place and quickly climbed the wall into the utility room on the 2nd floor of the factory. After confirming that he was not being watched, he only needed to quietly hide in the store on the 1st floor to ensure his safety. When Han Dong opened the iron door of the utility room, the sound of fighting inside the factory could be clearly heard. Just as Han Dong guessed, there were assassins waiting here. Just right. In this case, my risk is small. Just as Han Dong was about to go to the ladybug store on the 1st floor, he glanced at the battle area and suddenly recognized a familiar figure. For a moment, the veins on his forehead bulged. The idea of going to the store was instantly erased, and he rushed over as fast as he could. Chapter 1498. A few hours ago. Black Mountain Goat, Sally successfully escaped from danger in a private hotel and completed her initial test as an assassin. Obtained Ladybug points. 4 ladybugs times 2 base of a scene equals 8. Similar to Han Dong's thoughts, due to the team being split up and some of their abilities and equipment being sealed, Sally also set her sights on the Ladybug store, hoping to obtain information about her teammates from the store. Of course, Han Dong was not the only one who had an unexpected gain. When Sally was in the hotel, she accidentally found the basement where the owner of the hotel used to vent his perverted desires. Other than some chains, handcuffs, wooden horses, and other toys, there was also a black leather jacket hidden in the depths of the basement. Every victim that was brought here by the owner would be forced to wear this black leather jacket, and before they died, there would be a part of their body parts or resentment left in the leather jacket. Sally, who was the embodiment of lust, also noticed this black leather jacket that was different from the rest. When she touched it, a message was transmitted to her mind. Frowny face, obtained destiny equipment. Black desire leather jacket. World limited. Type. Breastplate quality. Excellent. This equipment provides an appropriate amount of defense, at the same time has the effect of healing wounds and stopping bleeding. Based on the individual's desire, it can increase the overall attributes by 25%. Sally naturally did not mind how many people had worn it before. In the current situation where there was nothing, it was very important to have this kind of equipment. Sally's level was suppressed to the level of a normal person, and the only abilities she retained were sheep's hooves and tentacles trace. Tentacles could not harm people, and could only provide self-enhancement and interference effects. While clearing the hotel, Sally went to the bathroom to wash off the stains and blood. She faintly felt that the black leather jacket had a feeling that it was fused with her skin. This kind of perfect fit gave her a higher adaptability and was more suitable for battle. The downside was obvious. If she wanted to take off the leather jacket, she might have to tear off her skin. Of course, Sally also realized that her attire might arouse the desires of some people and cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, before leaving the hotel, she took the black raincoat that the owner often used to commit crimes to cover her body that symbolized lust. Because it took a lot of time to find the Ladybug store, Sally spent a full 6 hours in the empty city. Sally, who was desperate to find her teammates but lacked experience, tried to sneak into the factory from the side when she saw the light from the Ladybug. Even though Sally's movements were very secretive, and the sound of her footsteps was almost non-existent due to the effect of the sheep's hooves, one of the 2 assassins, lying in ambush here, had night vision, and Sally's whereabouts were clearly seen by her. Whoosh! An arrow was shot. Sally, who smelled danger, immediately dodged. However, the speed of the arrow was simply too fast. Even if Sally, whose level was suppressed, could only barely keep up with it. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through his raincoat and grazed his waist. Sally immediately looked in the direction where the arrow had come from. An assassin wearing an owl mask was squatting on a beam on the 2nd floor of the factory. He held a steel longbow in his hand and carried a quiver of arrows on his back. There was also a short sword and a potion bottle at his waist. It was obvious that he was an assassin who had been in the day of the Ladybug for a long time. At the same time, boom! A huge assassin wearing an iron mask fell directly in front of Sally. His shirtless upper body was embedded with steel bars. Strips of steel bars drilled in and out of his body. It seemed that he had been strengthened in the game. The moment he landed, he swung a strange wrench with all his strength. Boom! Strips of steel bars drilled out of the big hole in the ground. Sally's movements were quite agile. While she dodged to the side, she also gave a side kick. Clang! A loud sound of metal colliding came from the factory. The assassin, who weighed more than 500 pounds, was kicked back 3 meters. He even coughed out blood from his mask, and his eyes were filled with surprise. However, just as Sally was about to give another kick, thump, a clear sound of a heartbeat spread in her body, and the feeling of blood blockage spread throughout her body. Her whole body immediately slowed down. At the same time, she also felt a numbness in her waist that was pierced by the arrow. Poison! At this moment, 3 arrows were shot from the front. Sally tried her best to dodge, but due to the numbness, her body couldn't keep up. When she barely avoided two of them, whoosh, the third arrow hit and pierced through her entire right thigh. A stream of purple blood spilled on the ground. At the same time, the wrench hit her from the front. Crack! The sound of bones cracking. Sally's right arm, which she used to parry, was completely broken. Her whole body flew back heavily. Steel bars grew out of the arm that was hit, and it was basically useless. Because of this hit, part of the raincoat was torn. Several buttons were also scattered on the ground. The front was completely open, revealing Sally in a black leather coat. The woman reflected in their eyes completely stunned them. You know, those who were selected into Day of the Ladybug were all assassins. Naturally, there were few women. In addition to the Ladybug points and various pressures, there were few opportunities to come in contact with such a beautiful woman. Tick, 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 the strong assassin, whose whole body was penetrated by steel bars, trembled slightly because of the wind, and even saliva seeped out from his mask. He even had a plan for the future. He would take this woman back to the basement and take out some of his points to keep her alive. He wouldn't get tired of playing with her for a year. Baggins, don't destroy such a beautiful body anymore. I'll take care of the rest. Hurry up and go outside the factory. Don't let the other assassins take advantage of the situation. Just as the rebar assassin finished speaking, whoosh, another arrow was shot out, but it wasn't aimed at Sally. The arrow with the paralyzing effect shot straight into the rebar assassin's back. Then 3 more arrows were shot in succession, all of which hit. Baggins, you're... When the rebar assassin turned around, he noticed something strange. Behind his teammate wearing the owl mask stood a mysterious man who was putting his arm on the back of Baggins' head and controlling his brain through some means. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Another series of arrows were shot out. But this time, the rebar assassin, who was on guard, activated the defense mechanism of his body. The rebar coverage greatly increased, and all the flying arrows were blocked outside. Since shooting arrows was useless, crack, the mysterious man directly twisted Baggins' head and put the owl mask on his face. Just like that, the corpse named Baggins fell and died on the spot. The person who came was Han Dong, who accidentally caught a glimpse of this scene. Just now, when Sally revealed her true appearance and attracted all the attention of the opponent, Han Dong seized the opportunity to sneak up and quietly put his palm on the back of Baggins' head. His tentacles connected to the brain. He directly killed one of the opponent's members. Wearing the owl mask, Han Dong jumped down, holding a strange human arm in his hand as a weapon. He asked softly, "Sally, are you okay? It's just a small injury. I'm going to kill this guy." The black goat's tentacles moved in her body, and together with the effect of the black leather jacket, they suppressed the paralyzing effect and pain. Sally, who stood up again, exuded a faint purple aura. Compared to the mysterious man who killed his companion, the rebar assassin smelled an even more terrifying aura coming from the woman who shouldn't be able to move. When his gaze met Sally's, it was as if he saw a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The number of kills between the two was not on the same level at all. Chapter 1499. 10 minutes passed. It was accompanied by a loud bang. The assassin, whose body was penetrated by the steel, fell to the ground and stopped moving. Even with the protection of the mask, his head was still trampled and crushed. Footprints similar to sheep's hooves could be faintly seen. Dying at Sally's feet like this was a better way to end things. Of course, both of them also paid a big price. Han Dong hurriedly supported Sally, who was in a bad state, and quickly went to the absolutely safe Ladybug store. If other assassins came to the factory at this time, things would become quite troublesome. The 2 assassins who were killed would be kill calculation through the system. There was no need to collect the spoils. Their bodies and the items they used would automatically disappear after death. Ring. The doorbell rang. Han Dong supported Sally and staggered into the store. The interior decoration was similar to a simple grocery store. A boss wearing a ladybug mask was standing behind the counter. Ladybugs could be seen everywhere in the store, on the floor, on the counter, and on the wall. Welcome to the Ladybug store. Since you're the newcomer assassins here for the first time, you have received a free hour of rest. You can check the store's information. After that, the compartment with a beaded curtain was opened. Han Dong and Sally just sat in the compartment, and 2 cups of tea were served. This lady is seriously injured. Before you familiarize yourself with the store's information, it is recommended that you spend some ladybug points to buy recovery potion, small, which can effectively stabilize this lady's injury. Give me a bottle. Accompanied by the system notification, the points were deducted. A bottle of red potion, similar to the one in the game, was placed on the table. Sally's thigh was not only penetrated by an arrow, and her arm was shattered. In the following battle, her ribs and kidneys were damaged. Due to her level being suppressed, her self-healing ability as a black goat was completely blocked. Sally kept coughing up blood while being supported and showed signs of fainting. Gulp, the potion went down her stomach. Her internal injuries were rapidly recovering, and Sally's overall condition was stabilized. If she wanted to repair her bones, relying on the potion alone was not enough. But for now, it was enough. Sally's face gradually regained its color, and her dim pupils also regained their light. She would slowly look for a way to repair her bones later. Is this the Destiny realm where Nicholas is undergoing your growth? The dangers hidden here are no less than the forbidden areas of our world. Furthermore, this is only the beginning. This is considered an extremely difficult challenge. This is also the first time I've encountered such a situation where we're forced back to the level of ordinary humans right from the start. It's good to be able to meet you. Sally leaned on Han Dong's shoulder, enjoying this moment of peace. At the same time, a rather important settlement notification came. Frowny face slaughter calculation complete. Nicholas killed Owlwing. Baggins without satisfying self-defense. Kill points plus 10, current, October 10th. Due to your identity as a newbie assassin, your slaughter level is temporarily maintained at 0. If you continue to accumulate slaughter points, you will immediately enter the next level. Obtain ladybug points, 30% of the total carried by the victim, dropped item. Bow of Tranquility, green. Sally killed, Iron Mask label, in self-defense. No kill points will be accumulated. Obtain ladybug points, 30% of the total carried by the victim, dropped item. Bertley Factory's special mask, green. Killing a target in self-defense only gives 30% of the points and a random drop item. It seems like the system is intentionally controlling the amount of ladybug points we can obtain. However, just a portion of the ladybug points is already a lot for us at the start. Let's see if these 2 pieces of equipment can be used. The longbow had a numbing effect on the arrows. Over time, it could reduce the target's agility by 30%. However, it needed to be used together with arrows supplied by the shop or factory. Sally, do you know how to use this bow? Most of our abilities have been sealed, and our levels have been suppressed. This kind of external equipment can greatly reduce the difficulty of the battle and reduce our losses. It should work. I've used something similar before. Let's try it after your arm recovers. If it works, we'll be able to coordinate with each other from afar. Han Dong continued to inspect the other dropped equipment. It was a metal mask that could cover half of the face. When worn, it could cover the mouth and nose. Bertley Factory's special mask, green. F***CK? Good stuff. Han Dong was stunned by the description of a mask. It could be regarded as a new piece of equipment for new assassins. According to Han Dong's basic observation, as an assassin player in the day of the Ladybug game, it was necessary to hide one's appearance. Just like the assassins who had just attacked the 2 of them, they both wore masks. This equipment could act as a mask. It could also increase the head's defense value and had a breathing adjustment function. Especially this special effect, it could increase the quality of breathing according to the individual state, and it could also filter the inhalation of poisonous gas to a certain extent. Click! Without saying anything, Han Dong directly put on the mask. Not to mention this kind of half-covered mask really did look a bit like an assassin. Next was the problem of the Ladybug shop. As Han Dong browsed the menu, sure enough, everything could be bought here. In addition to the usual items, equipment, materials, or consumables, you could also buy privileges. For example, by spending points to obtain the basic information of a certain game in advance, the individual would be sent to the nearest shop area to the game building for convenience, where you could buy rest time in the shop, where you could buy the more expensive safety order. Once used, the individual would obtain an hour of safety time. Not allowed to be killed, whether it was an NPC or other assassins, they had to abide by this. Where you could buy the moderately priced escape order. If the individual fell into a desperate situation in a certain game, they were allowed to forcibly leave the game. Of course, no points would be obtained, and the items obtained during the game would also be confiscated. But Han Dong had not been able to find the privilege to locate a certain assassin. Boss, can I spend points to find an assassin player whose name I know? Respected customer, in order to ensure that every player has the best game experience, whether it is out of good or bad intentions, the shop is prohibited from providing all the rights to search for other assassins. Okay, Han Dong sighed. It seemed that this fate event intentionally required participants to proceed in single-player mode. At this time, Sally said from the side, "Relax, in our team, apart from Kit. The other two guys will definitely not have any accidents. Don't look at Green's crazy behavior, completely not acting according to common sense. Once things touch the bottom line of his madness, that is, threaten the essence of his abyss, this guy will become quite reliable and terrifying. This is also the fundamental reason why Bop lost during the original game." Sally, I'm relieved to hear you say so. In that case, for the time being, the two of us will act. Han Dong flipped through the shop's menu to the next column after Privileges, Restriction Removal. Just as Han Dong thought, he could spend points in the shop to remove a part of his restrictions. For some reason, Han Dong faintly heard a barking sound coming from within his body. It was as if it was saying, "Nicholas, hurry up and remove this count's restrictions. With this count here, this level of game won't be easy." Chapter 1500. Although he had accidentally killed 2 assassins and gained extra Ladybug points, but Han Dong didn't consider directly buying expensive finished equipment in the store. Even if a green equipment cost dozens of points, the price of equipment sold to the store was only 50% of the original price. It was enough to empty Han Dong and Sally's points. Moreover, the current equipment of the two was barely enough. As for the privilege, the cost of points was relatively high, and most of them couldn't bring direct benefits. In Han Dong's view, privilege was a kind of long-term financial management. If he had enough money, he could consider buying a privilege suitable for himself to earn more points. In front of him, as a newcomer assassin, in addition to buying the necessary recovery medicine, the biggest upgrade for himself was limit removal. However, the corresponding amount of limit removal was not directly marked, but a string of words. Friends who want to buy limit removal need to apply to go to the store's testing area. According to the relevant testing results, the price of the corresponding ability will be given. Seeing this, Han Dong contacted the boss. Soon, the two were arranged to sit on a binding iron chair, and their heads were covered with a metal device connected to a wire and a syringe. This kind of chair was very similar to the chair Han Dong used to distribute fate points during the Apprentice Night period. Assassin Nicholas. Currently unlockable abilities and costs are as follows: Frowny Face, Underworld Blood. God's Blood from Dawn of Terror contains self-consciousness. When this ability is unlocked, the effect will be limited to low level, in line with the individual level standard. Required points, 30. Asterisk detected that the blood also has additional characteristics of Holy Blood and Pyrolite. After unlocking Underworld Blood, it can be unlocked by spending points or clearing a specific game. Magic Eye comprehensively improves vision and has some perspective effect. Required points, 30. The perspective effect will be limited in most game scenes. In addition, additional points or clearing a specific game will be needed to unlock the Vortex Eye feature. Toad Demon Foot increases speed, jumping power, and kicking skills. Required points, 20. Prison's Brain. This ability is too powerful and touches the world level, seriously affecting the fairness of the game. Most of the effects will be blocked, including camouflage, internal space, and force storage. This ability needs to be unlocked multiple times to obtain all the effects. Required points for each unlock, 50. Stage 1. You can randomly summon a warden from Prison's Brain to assist you in battle, maximum of 1. Stage 2. The effects of the tentacles have been improved, including the number of tentacles that can be controlled, damage value, and sensitivity. Stage 3. The Void Laboratory is unlocked. Individual can perform short-distance teleportation, but it consumes a lot of stamina. Stage 4. Mad Laughter's special traits unlocked. Just as Han Dong obtained all the abilities that could be unlocked, the system's voice rang out frowny face, dear guest. In addition to the above unlockable abilities, there is no other option. You can also upgrade your unlocked abilities in high-difficulty game scenes or special events. You can even obtain the exclusive ability of Day of the Ladybug. What a troublesome setting. In short, no matter what, level would not change. It would always be limited to a level slightly higher than that of a human. All abilities would be greatly weakened due to the issue of level. Based on the current number of points, this should be the best solution. However, I still have to discuss this with Sally. I can't even unlock a single ability with my current points. Just as Han Dong tilted his head to look at Sally, she also looked at him. Before Han Dong could make a request, Sally took the initiative to suggest, Nicholas, how many points do you need? Do you want me to transfer all my points to you? After all, we'll be working together in the future. You can decide how to use the points. Han Dong did not hesitate and nodded in agreement. Total points, 19, Han Dong, plus 21, Sally, equals 40 limit removal, Hell Blood, minus 30 points. As a syringe was inserted into his brain, eye-catching bright red blood vessels protruded from the surface of Han Dong's right arm. At the same time, a voice came from inside his body, frowny face, F***CK. What's going on? Where in the world are we? What's with this feeling of helplessness that engulfs our bodies? How can this count be so weak? No, I can't fight in this state. Don't panic. Everyone here is weak. Even Grimm is the same. Han Dong concisely explained the situation here. The reason why he chose Hell Blood was not mainly because of Count's helper, but because of the self-healing effect of the Hell Blood. Because of the suppressed level, the self-healing ability of the body did not exist. Once injured in a game, if not treated, there was basically no way to continue playing. Once the Hell Blood was activated, it would bring self-healing effects and save a lot of money on potions. Of course, a dog was more useful in the beginning. First, he let Count slowly accept and adapt to the weakness in his body. Han Dong continued to use the remaining points to buy some necessary items, including Frowny Face Serrated Arrow X40, 2 points. Healing Potion X5, 5 points. Bone Restoration Potion X1, 3 points. With the application of the potion, the injuries on Sally's arm and ribs were healed one after another. After some trials, she was able to wield a longbow easily. Just like that, a special 2-person killer team was formed. I hope you too can continue to visit my shop in good condition. As soon as Han Dong and Sally walked out of the shop, they glanced at the corner of the second floor at the same time. During the hour they spent in the shop, another killer team lurked in the factory. The number of people reached 4. However, they just glanced at the two of them and did not show any killing intent. After all, the prey that had just been spent in the shop certainly did not have many points left. However, when 3 of them looked at Sally's beautiful body, a perverted look of desire immediately appeared in their eyes. Machetes, darts, and strange throwing objects were already in their hands. Killing people would accumulate killing points. If it was just a one-sided imprisonment, there would be no punishment. At this moment, a blood-red light flashed on Han Dong's right arm. As the blood threads weaved and formed outside his body, a blood-dripping bloodhound that was close to 2 meters long was formed. Although its size, aura, tentacles, and teeth were far less than the bloodhound, it was still very intimidating. Summoner, the leader frowned and asked his companions to put away their weapons. Han Dong was not in a hurry to escape. Instead, he held Sally with one hand and slowly walked out of the factory with indifferent eyes. It was not until they were completely out of the sight of the group of people that he breathed a sigh of relief. Sally, it's really troublesome to put your body in this game. After all, it's a black goat that symbolizes sexual desire. It's hard to avoid the attention of the opposite sex. Let's go to the clothing store to dress you up first. Sally murmured to herself. What's the point? You're not interested. Chapter 1501. Inside the clothing store. Han Dong picked out a large hooded sweater for Sally and a pair of loose sweatpants, which could cover her body and face well. As for the longbow and quiver, Sally only needed to use a small part of her tentacles to attach them to her back, making it easier to move and retrieve. While changing, Han Dong tried to observe from a human's point of view. He could roughly understand why the assassins took the risk to attack Sally. After putting on a coat and equipping her bow, Sally imitated the other assassins and wore a goat mask. Nicholas, are we going to look for the others, or? Without the ability to move quickly and clues, it's too difficult to find Green and the others. Moreover, it's very likely that they're playing a game in one of the buildings. Since there's no concept of a party in this game, let's let them develop freely in the early stages. Once we have accumulated enough points, we can purchase some privileges to track them down. I believe that everyone can persevere until then. Then, Han Dong gave a simple analysis of the current situation. Currently, there's no direct information about the treasure. As for the main storyline of the Fate event, it should be to collect enough points in the game called Day of the Ladybug and meet the requirements to leave the game. The treasure may exist in a game with the highest difficulty, or it may be related to a special event, or it may be clues from a special game. In short, the progress in the early stages is very important. Due to the level suppression and ability restriction, the Fate travelers who come here have high growth potential. Therefore, the early stages of the game must be focused on the more difficult games. Try to obtain as many Ladybug points as possible, obtain high-quality equipment, and unlock abilities. Increase your combat power to the highest level as quickly as possible. Okay, let's go. Sally agreed with this statement. Moreover, she also had a few of her abilities sealed, and it was really uncomfortable. Thinking about how she was suppressed by the two assassins who could crush her with a flick of their fingers, she felt very sullen. She hurriedly pulled Han Dong back to the quiet and empty street. The two immediately searched the surrounding area, looking for a game building with a larger base. The so-called base level could be understood as the difficulty of the scenario itself. For example, the hospital that Han Dong had just entered was one level higher than Sally's hotel. After completing a Hitman game, the basic Ladybug points obtained were number of Ladybugs x scene base. In front of each game region, there would be a clear base number of scenes for the killer players to choose based on their own conditions and risks. Moreover, the higher the base number, the higher the probability of obtaining rare items and equipment. It was even possible to trigger some hidden quests to obtain special rewards. However, when it was time for the majority of the assassin players to choose, not many of them chose the high base scenes. Most of them wanted to live a little longer. Robin Street Elderly Care Community. Waiting to enter. Base number of scenes. Wilkinson Children's Amusement Park. Waiting to enter. Base number of scenes. Walmart Department Store. Waiting to enter. Scene base. Youth Dormitory number 13, Delos Street. Waiting to enter. Base number of scenes. After spending 2 hours searching the surrounding streets, there were a total of 4 scenes to choose from, with the highest base number being 4. Let's go to the children's park first. The park is relatively open, so it's more suitable for our cooperation. It's also better for your shooting, Sally. Okay. However, just as the two of them arrived at the entrance of the park, they received a bad notification. The game mode corresponding to this scene is limited to single player. Teams are not allowed to enter at the moment. Sigh. What a pity. We can only go to Walmart. Han Dong held Sally's hand and left the park under the watchful eyes of the group of masked killers. 2 streets away, the large 3-story Walmart department store was located at the end of the street. Currently, there were 8 killers waiting at the entrance. Since the game had not started yet, the store's entrance was closed and the interior was dark. This scene supports single-player/player mode. Currently, the number of players waiting is 810. Remaining waiting time 012. 41. Please check the basic rules to decide whether to participate in this game. When they received the notification, the killers waiting there all looked at the two of them. After all, as long as Han Dong and Sally participated, the number of players would reach the upper limit, and the game would start immediately. However, Han Dong did not care about the gazes of others. He read the basic rules carefully. This was Han Dong's first time participating in an official killer game. Type. This game is confrontation and escape. Entry. This game will be entered by drawing lots. Number of ladybugs. The number of ladybugs will increase over time. Theoretically, there is no upper limit. Clearance requirements. When the rest of the single-player/player teams are eliminated, the only remaining team will be rewarded. Elimination methods include death, use of the escape card, and leaving the game early through the escape exit. Reward. The basic reward remains unchanged. In addition, every team that is actively eliminated will receive an additional 10 points. Sure enough, the initial test is just a one-man game. When the real event comes, it involves confrontation. The difficulty is indeed high, especially the way the number of ladybugs increases. It's completely different from when I actively increase the number of ladybugs in the hospital. It will increase over time. In other words, in the end, there will only be one team left. If they persist, they will die. Should I change it? If I want to change it, it will take a few hours. That's enough time for the other teams to complete the game. Han Dong gritted his teeth and made the decision after considering that he also had 3 scenarios in his preliminary testing. After the system consulted Han Dong and confirmed his participation, the power system was turned on. The Walmart mall immediately became brightly lit. The sign hanging outside the mall also changed to "in the game." As the shutter door rose, the wooden box used for the draw lots also appeared in front of everyone. Participants, please draw a set of pills. If you are alone, you only need to take one. If you're in a team of 2, please take one each. Special warning. During the draw lots, participants are forbidden to engage in any confrontational behavior, whether it is indirect or direct. Once discovered, you will be directly marked by the Ladybug Killer. Han Dong took out a packet of paper from the wooden box. There were 2 pink pills inside. After the other participants took the pills, Han Dong and Sally also took them. An irresistible sense of drowsiness swept through her brain. Before falling asleep, Sally hugged Han Dong tightly. She was afraid that the two would be separated. After some time, Han Dong woke up in the middle of a shelf full of snacks. Sally slowly sat up, not far away. She felt her head buzzing. Using this method, different participants will be placed in different areas? This is indeed fair. Han Dong was currently in the food retail area. The space here was shockingly large. It was several times larger than it looked from the outside. At the same time, the density and height of the shelves were beyond the normal range. The snack area was like a small maze. The timer hanging from the ceiling was counting down. 0:05, 01. When the countdown ended, the survival game would officially begin. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.